Welcome to the Art of Lifting podcast. Today I am joined once again by Marcellus to do part 2 of our PA Nationals episode. This time we're going to kind of be recapping what went on, how it was. Obviously you were there in person, so you can give me some info on how the meet was kind of to be there as well, and some of the battles that went underway. Some played out, I would say, somewhat how we expected. Most did not. We'll run through kind of in order of each day. So starting with the light weight classes and kind of working our way through shooting between men and women. First question though, before we do that, is how was the meet itself? Obviously you were there. How was it run? How was the venue, that side of things?
Yeah, so the meet itself was ran very well, and the venue was actually awesome. It's in the sense of, obviously, in terms of, for a lot of us Americans, we're talking about like, oh, so we have to fly to Reno and then we have to drive an hour to Tahoe, and we weren't super happy about that. We didn't know what the weather's going to be like, but honestly, the weather was really nice down there. Beautiful area. The venue was awesome. The setup was really, really clean. I feel like as a whole, the warm-up room was spacious enough for everyone to be able to do what they need to do, and it ran very smoothly. Like Thursday and Friday, it's just 2 sessions. So the regular session, the prime time, and then Saturday and Sunday, it's 3 sessions. So a morning session, a midday session, and then the prime time. But they had the prime times like earlier in the day than what they typically do. And that was great because I think for both the lifters and those of us who are coaching and handling, what really sucks is if you're there all day and then by the time you're done, it's already like 10 p.m. or almost midnight. You have to rush to get food, sleep, and come back. So the venue was awesome. It was very well ran. I think the media team is doing a great job, like Top Set Media, White Lights Media, in terms of just reporting on things quickly and doing it in a way that's not overly invasive. Like, you know, they'll ask the lifters questions during weigh-ins or maybe like right after their third attempt, but not like, you know, between second and thirds or anything like that. And like they're there, but they're not getting in the way. So I thought it was ran very smoothly overall, honestly. So I was pretty happy and satisfied with that. And the energy was okay. This was like, it felt like a smaller nationals in terms of the total amount of people that were there in general. But I mean, with that being said, like it, you know, it's kind of how you expect with each day as the weights get heavier, the crowd gets more into it. More people who were competing are now watching. So it was smooth nationals overall. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think from like viewer perspective, obviously people have been complaining about the stream and stuff, but let's be honest, there's always issues with streams, no matter who's in charge of it, no matter which company's running it and stuff. Like there are always going to be some level of issues. For the most part, the stream was fine. I think on the first day you kind of expect it. And to be fair to the people as well, you don't know what the internet connection is going to be like until you're actually at the venue setting up either and stuff. But like viewer perspective for me, like you could tell the crowd maybe wasn't quite as big as some like American nationals are, but then I guess where the location was, people weren't going to be traveling just to go watch, I assume, either.
Exactly.
And like you said as well, like the earlier days, no matter like even here, like generally, obviously compared to America, for example, like getting to nationals in this country is very easy to do, to go and spectate, and a lot of people do. But we will always see the first couple of days, especially because it's weekdays, like people are working, whatever else, or the lighter weight classes that haven't competed yet will stay and obviously spectate towards the end of the weekend. The first couple of days, the crowd's never going to be quite the same. But it did look like from the stream and stuff, you know, the atmosphere was still there. Like people were super hyped for different things and different lifters and stuff. And like throughout the whole, like I only watched the primetime side of it, but like it looked fantastic either way. And I think the lifters that like, weren't like struggling with it or anything. There was like, I think Elliot Sykes is an easy example of someone that when he came out, the crowd went crazy and stuff. Like it was quite clear there was an atmosphere there. Yeah, it definitely looked good. How was it in comparison? Like obviously the whole point of prime time is that it's going to be more of a spectacle, right? And the people that compete in the morning are probably going to be desperate to stay and watch. How did you find like, or how did your lifters that were maybe competing in like the earlier sessions find it compared to lifters in prime time? Like were they still like super hyped? Was it still like a good atmosphere, good crowd? So that sort of thing. Was there much difference?
Yeah, I would say because for morning sessions, I'm trying to think, I was there for Friday morning session and the Saturday morning session. And I would say the energy was good overall, but I think it's kind of hard to say because a lot of my clients, like their teammates who are competing will be there hyping them up as well. Or a lot of my clients, their friends and family come there. And then, I mean, just keeping the buck. I try to bring energy no matter what. So I think my clients feel pretty hyped up regardless. But I think for them being morning sessions, yes, obviously it's not going to be as much the primetime sessions. We're waiting for the primetime sessions, what they're there to watch. But I think the energy as a whole was good. Like the people that are there, especially whenever the announcer would be like, hey, this is their third, like let's get loud for them. I think that was decent overall. Like it's going to be one of these things where it's always relative, right? But I thought it was good.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. In terms of primetime itself, so for the most part, I think they were obviously really entertaining and great to watch, like they normally are. I always find it difficult when the weight classes are mixed together anyway. And I think you do then obviously lose some of the battle with it. In terms of, I don't know how many people you had in obviously each primetime session. I know it would have varied from day to day, but do you think the battle got lost where the weight classes were separated or not? Because I know in the UK, we don't separate the weight classes up for a prime time. Like we have the weight classes all together all the time. And I just wondered if you felt like that was lost at all, like in terms of the battles, because obviously there's a limited number of people in each primetime session from each weight class to make them all fit.
I don't think so this time around. And I would say there's a few reasons for that. So if we go through each day, day one, there wasn't really a battle for like the 47s, for example, right? It was just Leanne versus the total, so you have to worry about that. With the 52s, you could say that there was a battle to like a degree, but we kind of like know how that settled. And then even the 57s, I feel like everyone who was battling was close enough to each other in attempts where you kind of get to just follow back and forth immediately. So there's that aspect of it. And then I would say on the days where there were like these deeper battles, like for example, the 83s, 93s, they had their own day. They had their own sessions. So I think that helped out a lot. And then even on the days we had like the 105s, since that was one flight of 105s, you can keep track of what they're doing. And then the 120s, 120 pluses, there was really only one battle in the 120s. And then like more like the battle for 24 pluses. So it wasn't too hard to follow in that regard. I think just due to the fact that what people were touching weight-wise was supposed to proximity to kind of like keep you on pace for that.
Yeah. And to be fair, thinking back, I actually think this year was better than previous years for that. So I think, yeah, you're completely right with that. Also a nice segue to lead us into the weight classes. So we will start with the 47s, which I've not got tons to say here. I'm sure you have more to say than I do. All I really have to say is obviously it was Leanne Lee versus Heather's total. She got it on her second pull, and then she got to just kind of go for a bonus pull, 440.5 total. So very close to obviously Tiff's world record total that she set at Sheffield. I also I will just say this as well. I've watched all the White Lights Media, like King of the Lift podcast back as well. I think it was Leanne and I can't remember who was it. She was Elliot, wasn't she? I think they did the podcast together. Maybe Leanne and Elliot.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All for the White Lights Media, correct, yes.
Listening to them both back there, I mean, both of them, like absolute credit, especially for how young Elliot is, like the mindset, the attitude, the respect on all of it was just so like refreshing to hear. And like Leanne as a lifter is definitely like worth following and just hearing how she approaches stuff. I didn't realize, I think, is she a nurse as well?
Yes.
So she works crazy shifts and she also doesn't track her food. To make
she tries as best she can, and we definitely keep her on. It's kind of like she goes through phases. Like whenever I'm like, Lynn, we really gotta lock in on this. We'll sit down, we'll make a game plan, and like, hey, it's really about the timing of, hey, here's when you eat your first meal, here's when you eat your second meal. When she's locked in like that, she's good. Historically, she hasn't always been as locked in on that, but I think recently, like going into the advances meet and then going into nationals, because she's like, okay, I need everything to do well. She's doing a lot better with it, and I think I'm about to see her elevate in that even more so now that she's going to Worlds. But it's definitely tough for her with her being a nurse. But honestly, that's the thing too, because I know on a different podcast I was listening to when people were like, oh, can she do it? Everyone's like, oh, well, where's the total going to come from? Like, well, there's room on her deadlift. And a common thing was people not being aware of like, well, how hard are her lifts in training compared to on the platform? Leanne always peaks so well, and always, whenever she's in training, she's always good from on the platform. Like even at the advances meet, she had so much room left despite hitting those PRs. And a big part of that is due to her lifestyle. Like when she's a nurse where you're working these 12, 16-hour shifts, you're on your feet constantly. She's also heavily involved with her church first community, and her family is always doing different events. So it's almost like she's always under this huge extra layer of fatigue. So the fact that going into meets, especially a meet like this, where she gets to travel, where she gets to kind of just chill, get her steps in, and eat for a few days and stuff like that, it's like a super taper basically. So that's why I felt very confident. I believe I even told Matt Gary, and he set this on the King of the Lift review, where I was like, not only do I think she'll be able to hit the total, I think she's good for 440. And I know a lot of people look at that and they're like, oh, where's it going to come from? But it's because I'm like, well, she hit 147.5 in training. So I know that if she's feeling the way she typically does, she'll be good for that record, 150.5. She hit 92.5 on bench. So she'll either be able to match that or be good for more. And based on how it moves, she was good for more. And then the deadlift is, it's funny because our hope was to push the deadlift harder to see where it was really at this time. And even after the third pull, it's still seemed kind of limitless. So, Leanne is somebody where I definitely think people should follow her. I'm not just saying that because she's my client, but more so the type of person that she is. She's someone where she's very hardworking, she's very humble, but she's still very passionate about what she does. And I think that's something that anybody can relate to. And I think it's something where when people are like, oh, I don't want to train because, I had a long day, they'll probably look at someone like Leanne and be like, okay, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So.
Yeah, 100%. And I think in this era where we have so many more like almost professional powerlifters coming in, or people that are like working part-time and powerlifting basically full-time, it's so cool to see someone, especially in the 47s, where like Tiff and Heather recently, and I think Jessica Espinal were the ones that were like almost untouchable. Like they were the top three. And obviously Tiff's been at the top for a long time too, until Heather beat her this year, just gone. But like to see someone that is working like a normal, intense job, living a normal life, busy life, to then come in and hit a 440.5. And obviously I don't know what her lifts look like at complete top end, but it looked like there was definitely room across the board. Like her squats, I don't want to say they shocked me because I kind of expected you guys to go for the record, but she looked so strong on those squats. And I was like, oh my God, like this is going to be an insane performance. So to see someone with that lifestyle coming in at a time when obviously people are kind of just full-time athletes and kind of almost making out as if you're not a full-time athlete, you're not going to be able to do it, is such a cool thing to see. And I think, I don't know which meet happened recently as well, but there's quite a lot of 47s kind of teetering at that 430 plus range now. I saw a few other people hit around that total the same amount of time.
At Canadian Nationals, I think she just, what was it? I think she hit 437.5, I want to say, or something like that. It was close to it. So yeah, it's kind of, it's funny how that always works in our sport though, right? One person kind of breaks through, the next thing you know, everyone else starts doing it as well. So I'm very excited for that. And I'm just very proud of Leanne because I know that she's even had moments where she's like, yo, can I keep doing this? It's a lot. It's stressful. We've had to have very long talks on our check-ins where it's more mental check-ins more than anything else. But I'm proud of her for sticking with it and keeping through because, I mean, yeah, she had a perfect day. She showed up. She executed. She did everything that she needed to do. And it was hype. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was insane to watch. And Worlds, the 47, like when the first session of Worlds is going to be that close to a battle, we're in for like the best Worlds yet. And yeah, the 47s is going to be insane. There's going to be so many people battling for that top spot. And they're not, like we said, they're not that far behind Tiff, like 440.5. There was room there. Let's give her a few more months. Who knows kind of where things are going to lead. So very exciting start to PNATs. Moving on to the 52s, Vanessa was kind of the clear favorite going in, wasn't she? And then I think, was it Jamie and Ariel that were kind of battling for that next spot? But I think Jamie showed up. If I remember rightly, Jamie's openers, I'm not that familiar with her. Like I know the name and I've definitely seen her compete before, but I feel like watching it, I remember her openers all looking quite hard, but then she just kind of kept going up anyway and was kind of fine. I know she did miss a couple of attempts on there and stuff, and that she's usually got quite a big bench and stuff. And I think she missed her second, but like, overall, she hit 47.5, so it's still a good total. I think she pulled to try and get ahead of, that might not be, I was going to say try and get ahead of Vanessa if Vanessa missed, but obviously Vanessa hit everything. But like Vanessa was the clear favorite going in, but it was still like very entertaining to watch just to see, because it wasn't really until deadlifts you knew where things were going to end up.
Yeah, I would agree. And obviously for that one, because I was handling Leanne the 47s and then handling Bree the 57s, I was only able to kind of watch and see so much. But I definitely do know what you're talking about in terms of, because we're watching everyone's like openers in the wardrobe on the screen and stuff like that. And yeah, the fact that it almost seemed like, is Jamie opening kind of heavy? But then like you said, she would go up and be just fine. And then I know for Ariel, I believe that she's been dealing with some like injuries and stuff off and on anyway. So, always credit for still showing up anyway, especially with the total amount of lifters who just either couple lifters who just didn't sign in the first place or who dropped out due to injury, travel, whatever it may be. So always credit to lifters who still show up and try to push through regardless. But yeah, there was obviously a very clear favorite. It was kind of just, if you make your lifts, you win. So
yeah, 100%. 57s was also really exciting. Obviously, Natalie Richards, pretty clear in the lead there. Your sister, Bria, fantastic performance. And actually, the battle for that podium was really exciting to watch the whole way through as well. And this was a session I think I was expecting to not be that kind of invested in because of the fact it was 3 weight classes split up for the battles. And there was kind of like a clear favorite across the board. But actually, I found myself unable to turn away from the stream because I was like, no, I need to see how this plays out. Natalie showed up. She hit 490, which obviously we know Natalie's kind of capable of more, but also like she didn't need more. And I think when it gets to Worlds, she's still going to be in that conversation for like minimum top 3, but realistically still battling obviously to go in and win, I think will still be her goal. Don't know what you've got to say on this. Obviously you were handling within that flight.
Yeah. I mean, with Bria, like we came in kind of knowing, expecting that if Natalie is on, has a perfect day, if we're on a perfect day, they were probably getting second. But it's more a matter of, okay, if Natalie's not fully on and we're on, what does that look like? And looking at it, because Bria, Natalie missed her third squat. Bria also missed her third squat. But if Bria had gotten her third squat and her third bench, she only would have been 2.5 behind Natalie. And we kind of realized some things kind of programming wise that we can tweak to have her squat show up a little bit better whenever she has to compete, like on a Thursday versus like a Saturday and stuff like that. But I think what was cool to see across the board with the 57s is the fact that I think things were just close to what people expected it to be. I think it's one of these things where people probably thought Natalie may be like at that 495 and above range. So the fact she's around 490, and then you have Bria on her tail, and then you have Michelle as well battling out. It really does show that even when it seems like there's a distinct lead, that how, like Matt Gary and Susie always say, like 9 for 9 makes a big difference, right? 8 for 9 makes a big difference, because when people start missing and other people start hitting, it can make a really big difference. It was exciting though, because in the same way we felt pretty confident that, okay, if Natalie has a day she wants, she gets first. We felt like, well, if we had the day we want, we comfortably get second. So missing that third squat was actually pretty big. And even though Bria PR'd her bench on her second, missing that third, it became a thing where it's like, oh, we have to like pull big now. We have to pull like our reach option to lock in that second attempt, which, she managed to do. So I was very proud of her for that. And it's just cool to see. It's cool to see for both, I'd say, her and Natalie, because, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well as a lifter and a coach. When you miss a third squat, it can be very difficult to kind of keep your mind where it needs to be and push through and go through the rest of the meet and execute as though you didn't. And I feel like both Bria and Natalie did a great job of that, just, because obviously I'm handling Bria, then Natalie's the main person I'm paying attention to as well. But yeah, it was just good to see. It's good to see that I think Natalie is kind of back at like where she needs to be. And I'm excited to see how she does at Worlds, because I know that last time, even though she wasn't quite where she wanted to be from a health perspective. So excited to see how that goes. And yeah, I mean, that was also just a really good battle overall, just for podium.
Yeah, I think what you said there as well, like had Bria obviously hit all of those lifts, she would have been so close to obviously where Natalie ended up. And I think this is a really important note of like on game day, when it is a close battle, yes, it's easy to go, you have to go 9 for 9. You have to be, you have to get your first 6 attempts. But if you're not the biggest puller, you do sometimes have to go for that risky third squat, that risky third bench, in order to even stand a chance. And as you kind of alluded to, when you then miss that third squat, it can be so easy to just lose your head and write yourself off. But actually, like watching the stream, you could see like Bria did not switch off the entire meet. Like she's still locked in. She got what she needed to done. And then had she lost her head, what should have been a fairly comfortable second would have ended up being a third. Which, no, it wouldn't make a huge difference in terms of like what happens next type thing, but that would still be like a big hit that obviously you wouldn't want to take. Like keeping your head after missing a squat is so difficult. And I think that's why I think Matt Gary always says, if someone misses their third squat, they're much more likely to miss their third deadlift as well. And I think that big part of that is the mindset. Exactly.
And it's the thing too, where it's like, well, hey, are you going to just comfortably pace for a second, or if there's an opportunity for gold, you're going to go for it? And obviously we're going to, so no regrets with anything in terms of what was loaded. But yeah, I mean, it was a good battle. And honestly, I think what made me really happy was I was like, okay, this is the energy we're experiencing for day one. And we haven't even gotten to 66s yet, but this is the energy we're already having for day one. It's like the rest of this week should be pretty good. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. We'll move on to the men's side of day one. And this was something that was really like so entertaining to watch. Obviously, we knew the 66ers would be. But again, I think day one is usually like mostly just the 66ers people care about. Like in the nicest way possible, that is just kind of how it's always been. In the last couple of years, it's been like obviously with Waskar and the 59s as well, when he wasn't at Sheffield and stuff, like doing nationals, that brought some excitement to the lightweight classes. But this year, like every single weight class, it was always almost like, what is going to end up happening here? And so Michael, who won the 59s, I wasn't that familiar with him before. I think I heard him mentioned on King of the Lifts, and I think we briefly spoke about him as well. I didn't realize quite how strong he was. And I also didn't realize, I listened to the podcasts after, how much he cut.
Yeah, that's why he calls himself the 59 kg experiment, because the whole idea and premise is not just the way he trains, being a little bit unorthodox in some ways, but him like, I'm going to intentionally sit this heavy and then kind of cut down last minute. Kind of like what we had to do with Waskar like a couple years ago, but it wasn't intentional. He just got unnecessarily heavy. But yeah, no, it was, man, honestly, that was, yeah, Mike's a beast. And the fact that there was so many people who doubted his capability to do it you could tell was really fueling him and where his energy was at. And it's cool to see someone else bring a little bit more flavor and personality to that class. But yeah, I mean, he did his thing. Like, quite frankly, I mean, I think, what is it? Like, 'cause I think the only lift missed, I believe, was his third squat, correct? And that wasn't even on strength. That was a dev call. Besides that, just executed very well across the board. And that deadlift is so disgusting. So foul.
Yeah, 100%. Just double checking what the world record is in the 59. So the world record total is 669.5.
Mm-hmm.
This was his first meet as a 59, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
So I think he did his qualifying meet as a 59 as well.
Yeah.
And that was actually, I think, just in December.
Okay.
So yeah.
So yeah, quite clearly the experiment is working. He's not that far off the world record total, and obviously he doesn't need it until Sheffield, obviously, if he gets the invite. So that's an insane, but also to see someone else in the 600s as well in the 59s, I feel like that's not the most common thing either, right? Like Sean finished with 612.5, which obviously was a decent chunk behind Michael, but the 59s are really rising. And then obviously, I assume Waskar, I think you coach him now, don't you? I assume he's staying 59. He's just having some time off, or like time from competing.
Basically for Waskar, just like with just now having to have his newborn and different responsibilities with this gym, he let me know, it's like, hey man, things are going well, training's going well, things great, but I need to kind of just choose, prioritize this right now. I'm not going anywhere. We'll come back next year, but I'm really excited for next year. And we'll probably talk about that more towards the end, but not just for the 59s, but for America as a whole. I think 2027 is going to be hopefully the best nationals we've had so far. And we'll kind of get into that later. But
yeah, no, I have no doubt of that. Just one more note on Michael as well. First 59, I believe, to also pull over 300. He ended on 301, which he is a very wide sumo puller. And I think if he gets out of position even slightly, he's not going to break the floor, right? Or he's not going to get the pull. And he kind of alluded to that on the podcast as well. Like, as long as he can maintain his position and be patient, he'll probably be able to pull it. For a 59 to pull 301 is absurd.
That's the thing. He pulled it with room. Like, it did not look like it was all out. And granted, like, to your point, it's one of those things where, well, if your positioning is off, it can go from looking really easy to impossible. But the fact that he hit it so comfortably was, to me, very impressive.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what he does at Worlds, especially with there are three, I think there's 3 59s going to Worlds this year that are all pretty close together. My mind has just gone completely blank, which I feel is really disrespectful. He did Sheffield. Ivan. I can't believe I forgot his name. Yeah, obviously Ivan is I'd imagine probably around the favorite. I can't remember what he totaled, but they're all going to be super close together. And again, it's another day of, the first day of Worlds. We've got 59s, 47s. Both of them are just going to be a dogfight. Yeah, it's going to be good. I don't think there's going to really be a single like boring day at Worlds, like, at all. Which is kind of, I mean, it's crazy even saying like, oh, there's boring days at Worlds, but I mean, we've been in the sport long enough to know that. Yeah, at one point, I would say that there were some nationals that were more exciting than the sessions at Worlds, but I think that's definitely starting to change a lot now. Yeah, I think even a couple of years ago. And again, it sounds awful to say, but it was usually the first day just wasn't as exciting. I think last year it was a lot more exciting. We had Heather and Tiff, pretty close together on nominations. Obviously, end up having an upset. The 59s, I don't think anyone necessarily expected Ivan to get close enough to hit the Sheffield total, but I think because Waskar had brought so much hype to the 59s previously, people were kind of excited to see what went on. Whereas this year, it's like, no, you have to tune in because there is going to be a really close battle across both weight classes with Sheffield qualifiers in both weight classes. Like, it's not like it's just close and they're quite below the world record. Like, they are close to it. So I think that's going to be really cool. Excited to talk to you about the 66s. Obviously, you were very much handling, very much game day coach here. Lots going on. Most of it, I think, didn't necessarily play out how I was expected, but it was an insane battle. I will just highlight as well that the person that placed second was actually in the morning session, or
in the morning session.
The earlier session, with a 7:10 total from the earlier session, which shows just how stacked this class is. But I'll let you talk through it because I don't want to spoil anything. You were obviously in the thick of it.
Yeah. Well, first thing I want to say that's also interesting about Eve getting second is that because Austin and I started working together about a year ago, and then 5 months in, we went to Junior Worlds, and he got first at Junior Worlds, but Eve got second at Junior Worlds. So I think it's hilarious that the juniors who got first, second at Worlds now got first and second in the Open. And that's kind of seemed like it was a trend throughout the entire week of junior lifters just going crazy in the Open. But yeah, so for a little bit of background, for me, with the scouting I was looking at and everything, when Austin and I had our game plan laid out, it's this thing where, of course, it's like the way I like to evaluate things is like, okay, if everyone has a perfect, if you have like my client has a perfect 9 for 9 day, where do I think your total is at? And then where I think everybody else's total is at on a perfect 9 for 9 day. And of course, that is the ceiling. We don't really expect most people to hit that, but that's what we kind of account for. And for us, we knew that we'd probably be like on a perfect 9 for 9 day around like 7:30 or so. And the way I was looking at it was that, okay, if I'm looking at top end performance, Brian Lee, to me, probably had like, if he could hit all of his best lifts across the board, probably in my mind, like the highest top end. I put him around like 735 or so. But my mentality with what I told Austin was, I said, but I don't think he's going to be able to execute that, because that seems to be his problem. Is like, you know, like depth calls on squat, lockouts on deadlifts. With Jonathan Garcia, it would be a thing where I was like, well, if I give him his best squat and I give him his best bench, right, I feel like he'll probably be around like, you know, 720-ish for no other reason than due to the deadlift. That's always the big thing. Now, granted, his bench showed up a lot stronger than what I was expecting it to, and he didn't get any calls for like with the new rule either, which that surprised me. I know for a fact that surprised Joey, because he's watching, you know, quite nervously to see how it goes, and he's like, oh, all right, I guess we're good. But I think they still kind of went more conservative on bench to be safe. Honestly, Jonathan looked like he might have been good for 190 on the day. So in hindsight, I think Jonathan actually probably had the highest top end potentially on the day. But my whole thing was like, it's the deadlift. He's going to be pulling first. So there's that to account for. Who I thought would be the biggest threat on the day period was actually Avery, because he's the most well-rounded in my opinion, and seemed like very, very consistent. And even though he's hard to kind of gauge where he's at in his training, because he only posts so much and his training's very unorthodox as well, it seems like, it's one of these things where I was like, okay, well, we just know that if he's hitting off his lifts, he's probably going to be in that good spot. So what I was telling Austin was, I said, we're probably not necessarily going to have like the highest top end on the day, but if we just make lifts, if we can hit in our range for squat, we make lifts, even though we won't be the last puller, we'll be one of the last pullers, and basically put ourselves in a position to have to force like Brian or Avery to pull outside of their range comfortably, right? But I'll be honest, it's and you don't say this out loud, right? Like, because for me, it's like I have to stay focused as though anything can happen. After squats, in my mind, we already won. Because quite frankly, like the and I say this with all due respect, but like the attempts and the fumbling and stuff that happened, either in terms of execution or failing for a lot of 66s, was surprising. But it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, like I said, with Brian Lee getting issues with like the depth calls again, right? So I think he only got a squat opener. So that obviously, like, it's like, okay, that hits him very, very hard, because now he has to pull that much more. And I kind of know where I expect his bench to land. Avery's squat opener, the moment I saw that, I was like, oh, we are in a very good spot. It was so hard. It was so difficult. And I don't know what was going on with him, but his squat opener was very hard. He failed his squat second. I assumed he was not going to go out for his third. And at first he wasn't even, because I already was having Austin getting ready. But then he came out last minute for his third. When he did that, I told Austin, I said, Avery's done. He's like, because the way that he failed the second to even take that third, I'm like, if he takes his third, that's going to cook his deadlift that much more. So in my mind, Avery's kind of done at that point. And then with Jonathan, his opener moved very, very well. His second, he had a misgroove. He had a pretty aggressive misgroove. Based off how his second moved, I was expecting them to do like a 5 kilo jump at most. It's like, okay, you misgrooved it, but probably a 5 kilo jump at most. And to me, there's two type of misgrooves that can happen. There's the misgroove where it's like, okay, a slight technical thing, but you still blow it up easy, in which case, okay, maybe you still go for your planned high end. But his misgroove made his second a lot harder. He expended more energy on it. So I thought they were going to do a 5 kilo jump. So obviously we would seeing where everybody's squats were at, like, and Austin did his second before, looking at just what was happening, I was like, okay, Austin, we're just going to do 270. Our range was 270, 275. I'm like, I think all we need is 270 based on what everyone else is doing. Obviously, I felt confident in that. But then after seeing what, after Jonathan took his second and then seeing what they put in for his third, which I think was 280.5, I believe, I was like, we're good. I told Austin, like, if you hit this, we're probably going to win. Because in my mind, there was no way Jonathan was hitting 280.5. I was like, after what happened with that. So once we got through squats, I was kind of like, it's now our day to lose. It's now gone from Austin, you're ranked 4th, and everyone's kind of looking at Avery, Brian, and Jonathan. They're like, it's our day to lose. If we hit our benches, we hit our deadlifts, I think we'll be in a really good spot. So yeah, that was, I think, the most interesting aspect of the day for the 66ers probably was just the squats. Like I was very, and it's something where you're grateful for it, but I'm also kind of confused because it's like Joey historically makes really, really good calls. Maybe it's the thing where Jonathan was like, hey, it's just a misgroove, I'm good. He went for it, and he's expecting where everyone else's strength to be. I really don't know what Avery and his coach were thinking with what the calls they were doing there. But yeah, that's how squats went. Before we go on to bench, did you want to express any thoughts or anything like that?
No, I think you've covered everything really well. I think Jonathan, obviously, I don't think him and Joey have had many meets together. So maybe it's just a case of still learning. And obviously, Jonathan's so experienced that Joey's probably just going to trust kind of what he says. But I think a lot of the time when you get those, especially a character like Jonathan and the way he speaks, obviously with how competitive he is, I can imagine him being the type of athlete to just be aggressive and say, no, I have it, I'll get it right. But his second, it almost like he just lost tension in the hole, and like it did look really uncomfortable. So the fact they went for 280.5, part of me was like, oh, well, maybe he will. But I think because he's obviously been focusing so much on sinking his squats because he's had historical problems with depth, I wonder if that's where the loss of tension came from, because he was just so committed to it. That then had he even got the 280.5, like I was 50-50 whether he'd get it. But watching the stream, I remember thinking if he does actually get it on strength, I do think it'll be high, because I can't imagine him being confident sinking that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll go through the rest of the meet, but like this was a prime example, as we always say with the 66ers, it does come down to handling. And the decision making that you made with Austin just shows that like you didn't have to be super aggressive, like you just had to make attempts across the day. And like with Avery, who I've not seen him compete that many times. Obviously, last year he was a bit of like a dark horse, came out and won, had a really good day. But I expect like quite a lot of consistency from him. But that opening squat, he was kind of laughing as he walked off. So I was like, oh, maybe it was just like a really weird misgroove. Maybe like it was something we weren't really sure of. And he still took a 12.5 jump, which obviously isn't a massive jump, but he jumped to 265. And I was like, oh, well, it must have just been some level of misgroove. It can't have just been the cut or the strength. Like it must have been like that. And then yeah, like you said, you know, he failed it twice. He came out for it twice, which at that point, it kind of is over. Like if you miss in the 66s that early on, you're kind of done.
Yeah, exactly. So that made it interesting. And of course, the thing is, while all this is going on, right? So I'm basically going through 3 battles at once. I'm Leanne versus the total, Bria versus Natalie, and then Austin as well. So keeping everything kind of distinct in my mind and locking in what I need to is a big part of it. Shout out to Petrie, Oscar, and Pat, who are in the back room helping me out as far as that. But once that was done, and then, you know, once the women got to their benches, we already know when it comes to bench, Austin is pretty much behind everybody else. Like Brian, Avery, and of course, Jonathan out benches everybody. But I think the big thing we were curious to see was like, okay, will Jonathan's bench pass? Because there were benches that were similar to Jonathan's in the open session earlier that didn't pass. But once it did pass, we're kind of like, okay, well, we're good to go with our plan, because our plan for bench was, you know, hit a very comfortable opener, and then usually his third attempt range would be around like 145 to 150. This time our mentality was, let's take 145 on the second. We've had Austin taking multiple heavy singles in training for this reason, so that way we can kind of be in that range, and then we can jump 2.5 or 5. And worst case, if we miss for whatever reason, we still locked in that 145, because I felt like we needed at least that. And I'd much rather ensure that on the second versus taking something lighter than thinking, oh, we're good, let's go for 147, missing and having a bigger drop off. And that panned out well, because we did hit 145, but then we loaded 147 and we missed that. But I'm like, hey, it's just 2.5. That's not a huge loss to us. For Brian, I want to say, did he finish? I think did he finish around 155?
He hit 150 and failed 152.
Okay, yeah, so I hit 150, fell 152, so he just lost 2.5 there. But once again, that hurts him a lot more because of only getting his opening squat. Avery, I think, actually still showed up pretty well on the bench press, which didn't surprise me, because I know his bench was going well in training, even though he didn't show exactly what it was. But my mentality was, well, what he benches doesn't really matter, because I'm like, there's no way his deadlift's not cooked from the squats. And then Jonathan, I was just, even though I absolutely hate the new rule, I was very grateful for it, because it's very obvious that they were going conservative based upon that. Because if Jonathan had benched 190, I think that changes the meet itself too. Jonathan was very strong, like on the day. Even despite what happened with the squat was strong, his bench was strong, but obviously they went conservative with that. So once everyone got through the benches, I'm already like, I've got everyone's databases pulled up. I've got all my notes pulled up, and I'm thinking like, okay, typically based upon their openers, where I expect them to land. And I am happy to say that everybody pretty much landed exactly where I thought they would deadlift wise. So going into deadlifts, I go to Austin. I said, okay, Brian's out of it, because what he would have to pull at this point to catch up I think it's outside of his range. I was like, Jonathan, I said on his best day, I think would be good for a 270. And I'm like, and if he manages to hit that, then we can pull our higher end of our deadlift. I just think I had him around like 305, 310 on the higher end. I was like, we can pull that and just match on body weight. Because one advantage that I knew Austin would have going in would be being lighter. I know historically the others land right around 66. Austin tends to be a little bit under that because we have him walk around relatively light, like in training. So I said, so if that's the case, we match. And then with Avery, it was this thing where it's like, well, let's just see how his deadlifts are. After seeing his opening deadlift, I was like, okay, he's not completely cooked, but I don't think he'll be able to pull what he needs to. But then when he jumped to what he did on his second, and after I was like, okay, he's just going forward on his second. So let's see what this does. And I will say, I was like, okay, if he manages this, then it definitely forces us to pull our higher end. But just based off the speed of his opener compared to last year, I was like, I just don't think he's on. And obviously he missed the second. And it is funny. I will say this. So in the back room, when Avery took his second and when he missed it, Joey looks at me and he goes, I guess it's just me and you. And I was like, I guess so. Because at that point, it's like, okay, Avery's not going to come back and hit that. And I think actually, no, he went up. He went up for his third. So
yeah, he went up 2.5 to 300. Not sure the logic on it, but
yeah. So at that point, I'm telling Austin, I was like, hey man, so like this is what I'm putting in for now, because I double checked what Eve's body weight was from the day. I was like, Jonathan's obviously going to pull first, and it's like if he gets it, then okay, we'll hit what we need to. But if he misses, then all we have to do, we can bump down as low as possible, match the 710 on body weight, and go from there. And then same thing. So Jonathan's attempts on deadlift were also a little bit interesting to me in terms of what they did for the opener and the jump to the second and then the third. But in my mind, I think it's a thing where Joey's like, we have to kind of just close the door on Austin at this point. So, definitely makes sense in regards to that. But after Jonathan missed, it's like, okay, now all we have to do is we get to lower it down. I think we only had to go up about like 5 keys from our second at that point. And I felt very confident with it. Austin's deadlift can look kind of odd on the outside looking in because it can look like it's really hard. But I don't go based off his speed off the floor. I know that's pretty consistent. It's all about where his speed is at the knees upward. So the way his second flow, I was like, okay, yeah, we're good for like 300, 305 today. So 295 should be very comfortable. And even though part of me was like, well, we could do a little bit more. She's like, let's just lock in the win. Let's just do that. Because I already told Austin, I said, I know you have goals of where you want to land total wise. I said, but ultimately I'm going to load what will win the day. I don't want to risk anything. And it would be so stupid to have made all the right calls up to that point and then get greedy when you don't need to. So I immediately double checked his body weight and I was like, all right, cool, we're good. Let's just lock that in. And he did. And I was very, very proud of him. Especially it's just especially satisfying when out of the group that your guy's the one who slept on the most, and then he manages to pull it off. Not even necessarily being the strongest on the day, but just going in and executing. And like I said, from the moment the squat happened, I was just like, okay, yeah, we're in a good spot. So it was a very interesting battle. But like you said, I do think it was more a battle of just the handling on the day. And not to put the focus on us as the handlers, more so than the lifters. But I mean, the reality is I don't think Austin was like the outright strongest lifter on the day top end wise. But we didn't have to be. So
yeah, you say that though, but to be fair, like the 270 squat he did, like he matched.
Yeah.
Jonathan is known as a squatter, right? And his 270 was a lot. Not obviously Jonathan misgrew, but like there was a lot nicer.
Yeah,
like,
no, we definitely. I would say I think for us on the day, I think we definitely weren't like we came in for. I would say we were probably. I'd say we were the second strongest, to be honest. I do think Jonathan outright with different attempt selection was a little bit stronger than us, but I definitely think we were the second strongest for sure. So yeah, that was Austin showed up well, very, very well.
I think what's also really satisfying, like you said, I'm like a proper powerlifting nerd, as people know. That's why I have the podcast. But like Austin is a name that I've known of like for years, and I don't think he's really spoken about. Was he a junior world champion? He wasn't he?
Yes, yeah. We won last year, correct.
And I think it's something where like everyone's sort of known of him, but I don't know that anyone necessarily expected to. Like you said, he was kind of slept on going into the battle. but he's someone that just consistently shows up and just consistently keeps working. And I think he was going to go up to 74 at one point, and then the fact he stayed at 66, obviously at such a young age, and like you guys together have just proved that was the absolute right call, because now he is the one going to Worlds with a competitive total, like obviously taking Shell out of the equation, like with a very competitive total, and he has room on the total as well. Like that, didn't you take his lower end deadlift as well for the third? Like it was literally just, it was what, like 10, 15 kilos below the potential third. So there's so much room there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, because when Austin came to me, a big part of it was like, you know, I want to, new approach. I want to see if I can manage to take what I've done in training before as a 66 and bring to platform. I'm like, bro, I definitely think we can. I said, I'm all about people moving up when they feel stalled. But I said, but in your case, you've shown what you can do. We just need to get you healthy, put it all together. And I honestly felt confident from last year, because we managed to get him to the 700s. I think it was like 703 or 702.5 at Junior Worlds last year. That was just with 5 months together. So I was like, okay, by the time Nationals comes around, I know we'll be in a good spot. And it's just, Austin's just one of those people where you want to see him win, because he's just very humble. He's a very nice guy, very respectful, keeps to himself. And he doesn't want to, if Austin wins, he doesn't want it to be because anybody else did poorly. He just wants to do his thing. So yeah, really, really good dude. And, you know, once again, I love seeing and I love working with people who are very young, but they don't act young, if that makes sense. Like they have a very mature head on their shoulders and stuff like that. Austin has been super receptive from the jump, which I know can be hard when you've had a different coaching background for years before that. But it's paid off. So yeah, very, very proud of him for that.
Yeah, and I think he's another person who, when I was watching the like post-comp recaps and stuff of the podcast, I just think like he was on it with Michael, and Michael in the 59s, like he is like a smack talker, and I think that's amazing. And it was the contrast of him versus Austin, and Austin was just like, I just love training. I love lifting. I enjoy competing. I want to do well, but you know, I'll just show up and do my best. And I'm like, we need both ends of the spectrum in the sport, 100%. But it's like, to be so young and to be at that maturity and level-headedness is just so refreshing to see, which also segues nice into 74s for someone even younger, Elliot, and his attitude and everything on the post-comp like debrief and stuff. I was I don't want to say surprised, but I don't think I've ever heard like a 19-year-old so mature in his approach to everything. But Elliot came in and he put up more than I expected him to, way more. I don't know what you were thinking going in, but he did definitely put up more than I expected.
Yeah. So for me, I actually had Elliot on the highest end, just based upon what one of his big last training sessions was. I, on the highest end, actually had him thinking like he might be between 860, 870. That's if he came in and had like a perfect day. Obviously, he didn't have necessarily a perfect day, but to me, that's kind of like, okay, well then, if he had hit some of those lifts, he kind of would have landed within that range. But I mean, look, it's such a weird thing, because it's like, we're talking about it right now. People are going to talk about it on podcasts. It's going to get spread over social media, what Elliot did. And I still feel like it will not get its due credit. And that's because Austin Perkins exists. It's like, it's so funny how if Austin did not exist, like Elliot would be that guy, like very undeniably. And I think, and even though I'm somebody where I am very big, I'm more big on like training age versus just actual age. I'm big on context. Like, you know, the information, the coaching that Elliot has at this age is a lot better than the information and coaching that Austin had at that age. But still, you can't take away from the fact that this 19-year-old just put up an 850 plus total, which once again, the only person to do that in this class is Austin. And even though Austin put up the 890, and even though Austin is good for 900, if not more, and like I said, we do now see what that distinct gap is. And Austin is clearly ahead. Like there's no argument about that. But credit where it's due, because Elliot, on not even a perfect 9 for 9 day, put up an 850 plus total, and it was just insane to watch. Because I think this was my first time actually being able to watch him in person. Because I didn't get to stay for Junior Worlds when he went. And then Age Division Nationals the year before, I wasn't at that one. So being able to see him and his demeanor and stuff first was very entertaining. And it's funny because his energy on the platform, like you said, you wouldn't necessarily expect him to be the way he is when he's talking and interviewing. It's almost kind of it's like he's two different people. It's like he's this almost like wild, like type child on the platform, but then just very like calm, collected when he's talking and interviewing. So yeah, nothing but love for Elliot. And it was just a very impressive showing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think he was it the second highest dots of all time. I think it was dots.
Yes.
of any male lifter. Like, he's not going to get the credit he deserves, but
No,
like,
he's not.
that's an unbelievable. And like, he's obviously training age is really important too, but the fact that he's not even 20 years old, I think he turns 20 soon, but like, to do that as a teenager. And I think on the preview, you were saying, you know, it'll be really good to see where Elliot actually is so that we can actually look at the rate of progress he's making versus Perk and see when it's going to be a battle. And Elliot was pretty honest afterwards about the fact that, like, you know, he is a decent chunk behind Perk still at this point in time, but also he's got at least a year until they battle head on.
Yes.
But also he's not going anywhere. So give him another year. And I think he's not doing junior worlds this year because he wants time to just continue to push and to build. And this was a huge total PB as well. Like at junior worlds, I just looked and he put up 8:15 and that was back in August. So he's now at 8:52 with, I would assume, not the perfect takes. When you look at the jumps from attempts, his thirds weren't super, apart from on the deadlift, like his squat third was only 5 above his second and he missed that. So I think they must have been expecting him to be good for at least a 330 plus when he took such a big jump from first to second. Bench as well. He jumped to 197 from 190 and then missed 200. I would have expected them to probably expect him to be at least like 202, 205 if they're jumping 7.5 from first to second. So when he shows up, obviously at the strength they're expecting as well, like you said, you know, where's he going to be? He's not that far behind and he's so young that there's so much time. And I think he also said as well that he doesn't, like, you know, it's going to be a while before he considers moving up. Like 74 is pretty comfortable for him. Like he's still not a full 74. He weighed in actually lighter than they wanted him to as well. Like his weight dropped off really easily. He's working with Kedrick. He's got like the dream team in his corner, hasn't he? He's RTS and Kedrick on his nutrition. Like he's got so much knowledge behind his team, or like his team has so much knowledge behind them, so much experience behind them. I'm so excited for next year to see them two on the platform together. Even if Perk is still a chunk ahead, it's still going to be exciting to see them
it's
together.
It's going to be different. You know, I think it's going to bring something out of both of them that they simply cannot have if they're just competing by themselves. Because even if the thing where Austin's like, hey, I've got this in the bag, but Elliot being right there, I think will give Austin this extra edge to him. And then Elliot knowing that Austin's right here in front of me, like, I gotta close the gap. I'm so excited for it. And like I said, between the amount of lifters who maybe got hurt or just didn't sign up and dropped out, I had like a list I think it was like 13 or so lifters or so who didn't show up. What does have me excited about it though is oftentimes here in America, the high level lifters, it's like this back-to-back constantly, right? Like for everybody else in the world, it's like, okay, your nationals, your worlds, your Sheffield. So when this many are kind of forced to take this time off, or even the way Elliot's choosing to do it, it's just going to be so good to see. And honestly, I think, and you touched on this, Elliot's mentality, I think is the big thing that makes it interesting, because I feel like most people, even with hitting that type of total, would just get discouraged and be like, Austin's too far away. I'm not going to catch. Elliot's patient. You can tell Elliot is very, very patient, and he has the right mentality. He has the right people in his corner. So he's not going anywhere. So it's like, I think this could be something where, you know, depending on how long Austin decides to stay 74, what does it look like in 2-3 years? Does the gap get closer? Because the other thing to account for with Austin too is that we know for a lot of last year, Austin was holding himself back. He didn't really push himself to the limits. He'd have a reason to. So I'm very, very excited to see where they both end up by this time next year. I'm excited to see them finally battle it out. And I think Austin's excited for it too at this point, just to kind of prove a point as well. So yeah, I think it's awesome. But yeah, I mean, there's only so much I can really say about Elliot without seeming like I'm just outright glazing him. But I mean, he didn't really have any competition, so it kind of was just the Elliot show. But it was cool to just see him go out there and do his thing. And you could tell he had fun too. Like you could, even the end of the warm up, he's having a good time.
Yeah, 100%. It was an incredible first day. We'll move on to the second day. So we'll start with the women's 63s. You were handling in this session. Were you just handling on the men's side, or were you handling the women as well? Just
on the men's side, yes.
Yeah. So we'll talk through the 63s. I don't know how closely you then got to watch it all. Meg Scanlon going in was, heavy favorite. I think the person ranked second, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. She ended up pulling out anyway due to injury. And I think Meg kind of said, Christiane. Yeah. So I think last year Meg also did nationals for a similar reason, because I think it was Angelina Martinez last year. I think off the top of my head, Meg was like, I respect her enough as an athlete that I want to show up because I think she could potentially, challenge my title. I want to be there to battle if we need to. And she said the exact same thing this year. And I think for Meg, doing nationals is literally, it's one of those things. And I think, I can't remember who it is. I think there's a Swedish lifter as well. I can't remember who it is. Maybe Gustav basically said, I want to be the national champion because I represent my country at Worlds and I need to be the national champion to do that. And I do think, even though obviously on the American side, Meg doesn't have to do nationals, I think it is just this thing of, you know, I respect my competition enough that I'm going to show up and I'm going to be there to fight for my spot if necessary, because you never know. And she showed up. And considering the turnaround, she had a really good day. And we know Meg can compete a lot, but we were interested, I think we spoke about, to see how she showed up on back-to-back meets as a 63 instead of a 69. And she obviously made weight and she looked strong on squats considering the turnaround as well. She hit 203.5, which I think might be a 63 PB for her. I'm not actually sure. I should probably check that. I know she's hit more. I think she's hit more as a 69. And I think at Sheffield, she got called for depth on like 207, 210-ish. So, you know, she is capable of a bit more. Yeah, 207 at Sheffield is what she missed. But she showed up strong considering the turnaround and considering the second weight cut as well, which makes you intrigued to see what happens at Worlds. She totaled 563.5, which is a chunk behind Alba's new world record total. But we don't obviously know what's going to happen at Worlds when it is that many people battling out. I think Leah's back for Worlds as well this year as a 63. So it's going to be a bit of a dogfight. One thing I was interested in with Meg is the bench. She's changed to a softer touch because of the new bench rules. I am a big Meg fan. I'm just going to caveat and say this. I don't think that elbow depth that passed at PA Nats is going to pass at Worlds. Like, I really don't. I obviously, I don't like the rule. I will sit here and say I don't like the rule. I hate reffing the rule. But that is one thing I am kind of hoping that they will have noticed and obviously be working. And obviously Meg is like, she knows what she's doing. Her team know what they're doing. And I hope that obviously by the time Worlds comes around and she has more time to work on it, everything is undeniable. But that is something that I was thinking as I was watching. I'm kind of intrigued to see what happens there.
Yeah. I didn't get to, I got to watch her squat. I didn't really get to see her bench until I went back and watched the live stream, and I was thinking the same thing. The good news is obviously she's had, like 5 weeks to kind of try to adjust to this new rule. So my hope would be that by June, she'll just be more adjusted with the technique and stuff like that, and be able to have it pass so that she doesn't have to have a hard time in that regards. But yeah, it's interesting because it's like on one end, right, there's the super rational coach side of me that's like, okay, well, you're there because you think Christian could be a threat. The moment Christian would have dropped, the rational coach side of me would have been like, okay, last year you did nationals when you didn't necessarily have to, and then we saw how things went at Worlds. So maybe, hey, if Christian's out, you can drop too, right? So there's that side of me. But then on the other side of me, the lifter side of me is kind of like, she's a dog for that though. Like just the constant back-to-back meets. And also I do think it does give her a certain level of preparedness that some of these others won't have, because starting next year, you will have to do nationals anyway. Granted, it won't be as quick a turnaround because it'll be from November Sheffield to nationals in March. But the fact that she showed up and showed up well was good. And there's also the psychological aspect of it. It's kind of like if the last meet in your mind is how Sheffield went down and you're having to hold on to that throughout the rest of your prep, who knows how that impacts you. Whereas being able to come off of this nationals where she kind of said, hey, I came back, got that taste out of my mouth, could be very advantageous for her. So, I mean, I love watching Meg work regardless. She's always entertaining to watch. She's always, and just as a fellow parent, I just respect what she's able to do. Like I said, she was a big motivation for me when I did my 4-week turnaround from SBD Austin to the December meet. So it's always good to see her do well. You always want to see her do well. And I mean, she did. I think at this point with her nutritionist, she has things very consistently locked in to where the cut doesn't seem like it's impacting her to the same degree that it did. So
yeah, I also just looked as well, and that's only 2.5 off of her best ever 63 total. So everything considered, like she's in a good spot. And I think she also said on the post comp kind of debrief thing that I think what you said about like the mental thing of, your last meet not being a good one, then going into Worlds is quite a lot, and actually doing this in between kind of gives her a fresh slate, like a clean slate almost. She did mention that post Sheffield, she was kind of sitting there trying to tweak her technique across the board. Like even on deadlift, she changed stuff. And, you don't want to be worrying about that sort of thing going into a world championships. So it did just give her this quick turnaround to almost like freak out a little bit, get in her own head for a little bit for that short space of time between the two meets. Now she's done a meet, it's gone well, put it behind you, move on type thing. And I'm pretty sure 222.5, which was her third pull, was also a 63 kilo PB. So she's made a point of being like, no, I'm still strong. Sheffield was a one-off, like I'm still here. And obviously we know her bench, once she gets used to the change, is probably going to come back pretty
And
comfortably.
she has more time this time compared to last year. Last year, I think we had 8 weeks between PLA Nats and Worlds. This time we have 14 weeks, and that's a good difference. So I think she'll show up well. I'll be excited for that battle at Worlds for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on to the women's 69s. This was a dogfight of a battle. I don't know how close you got to see this, and if you watched it back after. Going in, we knew it was Janae versus Celine for the top spot. And then I'm going to shout out Angelina Martinez as well, because she looked super strong across the day. Like, she had a really good day. Her deadlift looked insane. She pulled 235, which I think was actually the heaviest pull in the flight in the end, or in the weight class in the end. She had a really good day, and I think give her a bit more time in the weight class and she'll definitely be up there with those two. But yeah, Janae versus Celine was insane. And just for anyone that hasn't actually watched it, both made all 3 squats, both went 2 for 3 on bench, literally just missing kind of small jumps at the end there. And then it literally just came down to deadlifts.
Yeah, and although they both went 2 for 3 on that as well, right?
Yeah, Janae had kind of secured it by her second pull, so she knew that, you know, she was able to just kind of go for whatever she wanted for that third pull and just kind of go for a PB. But it doesn't look as close as it was when you look at their totals because of that. But anyone that's watched Celine compete before, so she went from 215 on her second to 230 on her final deadlift. Celine does just manage to pull the most grindy PBs on deadlift in a battle. I don't think anyone would have been surprised had she just 20-second deadlift at 230.
It's one of those things where if you see most people load something like that based on how her second looked, you'd be like, oh, it's over. But with us, I mean, because I did watch that, like, as it was going, I'm timing like my client Lucky's warm-ups with that. So because I was very invested in that battle. And it's like, okay, well, if anyone else had pulled that second and gone up 15 keys, I'd be like, they're tripping, but it's Celine. So, and based upon even where she got it relatively, it's just like, you never know. But it was a very good battle, because both of them, kind of like I said, we talked about this a little bit on the preview show, where it's like, okay, at one point, Celine was doing some injuries early in the prep. It seemed like she was kind of getting better towards the end. Janae was very on for most of her prep. Then she started dealing with the back injury. So it's kind of like, okay, where do they land? And the squats were very telling, because I feel like for both of them, their squats were very strong and very on. But just from how they were kind of moving and training at their best, you could tell, like, okay, they're having to grind through this a little bit more. So to watch the way that they both push through that third squat, it's like, okay, we have a battle. They're right there. Because I think the narrative going in was that, okay, Celine will probably have the lead on squat. They'll bench very close to the same. And then Janae will have the lead on deadlift. I think what also made the battle interesting was that Janae ended up squatting very close to, I think, the best she hit in training. The best she hit in training, I believe, was 210. She squatted 207.5, I believe. So there wasn't maybe quite as big of a gap between her and Celine on the squats as what people thought there would be, or at least, like, she ended up landing where I thought she would before her back injury. After her back injury, I was like, oh, man, I don't know. I remember asking her a couple days before. I was like, hey, you good? She's like, I'm going to take a bunch of ibuprofen and be good. So it was interesting as far as that. But so that was really interesting. And then with bench, same thing, where it's like, okay, it looks like, you know, after Celine missed her third, it's like, oh, Janae be able to pull ahead even more. But then she also missed. And I think they finished with the same bench, actually, did they? Is that correct? Or did Janae have two?
Janae had 2.5 more. She had 127.
Okay. So very close on bench as we expected. And then, with deadlifts, that was the only thing. Going to pulls, it kind of is like, okay, well, if Janae just hits, she's pretty much got it. But once again, you just, based upon Janae's second, and then Celine's second, is like, okay, if Celine pulls off this third and Janae doesn't have much left, that'd be interesting. Granted, Janae could have just dropped if she needed to, based upon if Celine, what Celine ended up doing. But that was a very entertaining battle from start to finish. And it was very wholesome, too, to see them show love to each other at the very end. So there's a little bit of internet back and forth, stuff like that, which, once again, we need both, right? But that was a very good battle.
Yeah, it was insane to watch. And like you said there, the fact that, you know, online they were like presenting as mortal enemies going in, hating each other, it's going to be a dogfight. Like, no, they're hyping up the battle, which worked. And it lived up to the hype. Like, it was literally just down to those final pulls. And it was great to watch. And if Janae did that, because I don't think she was healthy going in, like, you know, she said she obviously loads of ibuprofen going in. On the post-comp debrief as well, she did mention that, you know, things didn't feel amazing. I think on squats, she could kind of tell that things weren't quite right. She can get herself nice and healthy for Lithuania now, for Worlds. What's she going to put up in that weight class? Because the 69s is also a dogfight at Worlds.
Yeah, she can do something. I definitely think Janae's someone capable of 600 for sure.
Yeah.
If not more long term, it really is just going to be a matter of her getting healthy, and her coach Alex Kano just it's like anything else. Being in a situation where I work with a lot of like now strong high level lifters, so much of it is just about how you pace things, right? Knowing when to push, when not to push, especially when they're young and getting strong very quickly. And as they continue to get a grasp on that, I think Janae's going to be. I mean, she already is a force, but just even more so.
Yeah, 100%.
Celine, please do not move up. Please, I think I saw her on this. It was either a story or a post where being like, "Yeah, the cut kind of hit me this time. Probably going to move up. Please do not move up." I know historically that has always worked out in her favor when she has. Please stay. I need this. I want to see this back and forth continue.
Yeah, it's that thing of, 1 or 2 harsh cuts does not mean it's time to move up.
No,
it does not mean it at all.
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all.
And also, her strength still showed up. So it
Yeah.
didn't have an impact on her performance.
Yeah.
So no, she needs to stay just for the battle because it is, like I say, so much closer than the totals actually reflect.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see going forward. We'll move on to the 83s. This one, I mean, by squats, it was kind of over in terms of the battle.
Absolutely.
It was still fun, but I'll let you talk through it because you were handling during this one.
Yeah, so I was handling my client Lucky, Alex Lacau. And for us, our goal was to kind of come in and place top 5 because we just knew well, 2 goals. First goal is we wanted a 10 times body weight total for him. So like that 830. And then we also wanted to place top 5 because we knew the top. Well, originally we're like, okay, it's going to be like Joe, Taylor, Jaden, and then Angelo. So we knew we'd probably be battling out with Sean Jin for that spot. But then Taylor dropped, which is, very unfortunate, especially the timing of it. I think it was like literally like the week going in, we found out that he wasn't going to be there. But honestly, I'll be honest, once that happened, in my mind, it was like, okay, if Joe shows up at 890 strength, which I thought, I mean, Joe and I talked like a week or two before, and I was like, man, everyone's automatically saying like, oh, it's over, you're done. But I'm like, dude, I don't think you'll even need 900 to win, to be honest. I think if you're in the 890s, you're good. And the thing that people have to keep in mind with Joe, and me and Peter talk about this all the time, where I was like, oh, it's a quick turnaround. I'm like, yeah, but it's Joe. Have y'all seen his training? Every block is a quick turnaround. If anybody can pull this off, the man goes RP20 at the end of each block anyway. It's like, and I think he says himself on a podcast, like, is he going to be good for all-time PRs? Probably not, but can he be around that 900 threshold for sure? So when Taylor didn't show, it was then at that point like, okay, is Joe strong on the day or not? And by squats, you could see, okay, he's fine. So he's good to go there. So I don't have too much to say about Joe himself. He came in, he executed, he got it done, got a spot back. I think definitely was more of the interesting battle was definitely for second place between Angelo and Jaden, and that made me happy and made me sad at the same time. And we'll get into that. It made me happy because Angelo's my boy. I wanted to see him do well. I know everyone was talking just like, oh, Joe, Taylor, Jaden, but I was talking to his coach John Song, and I was like, hey man, if Angelo can just, because it's like, I understand his bench has him very far behind, but it's like people forget this man squats 7 and pulls 8. You can't count out the dude who squats 7 and pulls 8. You just can't. It just doesn't make, like, that's absurd to say, like, especially in the 83 kg weight class. So yeah, I'll say real briefly for my client, like, we didn't have the day that we wanted. We went 7 for 9. We loaded what we had to on the squat to ensure we got the fill that we wanted. But once that happened, the goal was just try to lock in top 5, which thankfully we still did. But yeah, Joe cruised through it for the most part. As far as the, I think he went 3 for 3 on squats. I believe he went 2 for 3 on the bench, correct? Yeah. Joe? Yeah, and I know that he got pretty sick going into this and was pretty beat up, like with the back and forth. So because even after a second, he was like, man, it felt so heavy in my hands, and we were all kind of surprised. He's like, yo, you blew it up though. It looked bad. So that's like, okay, he's not feeling great, but still, he was good to go on that point. With Angelo and Jaden for second, obviously it came down to deadlifts, right? And then of course the really was more of a math thing than anything else. And it was interesting too, because looking at it and looking at their body weights, and this happened a couple of times. So Rhea and Michelle in the 57s weighed the exact same thing. And then the same thing happened here with the 83s. And I believe there was someone else, I think it was in the 93s maybe. There was another weight class where 2 people weighed like the exact same thing, I want to say. I might be remembering that incorrectly. But it was funny because I've never seen that happen so many times in one meet. But yeah, basically, you know, when it came down to the deadlifts, Angelo obviously pulled first, and he hit the total. And then Jaden ended up hitting the exact same total. They should have bumped it by 2.5, 5. And like I said, I felt very happy for Angelo, but I felt very bad for Jaden because Jaden clearly had more on the deadlift. I'm still not exactly sure what happened with like what they were doing math-wise. I remember watching it and looking at it. And even when they put it in, and I didn't say anything because I'm like, this is not my battle. I'm not about to say anything. But I do remember looking at it and I was just like, that's not right. And I remember Angelo, like after Jaden got his deadlift, you know, like congratulating Jaden and walking away and then looking kind of like a little bit upset. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, wait, like, does nobody realize what's happening? And then when they all realized it, they all rushed Angelo. But I was just thinking the whole time, I was like, that's not the number that you're supposed to be pulling. So yeah, that was definitely interesting.
Yeah. So for anyone that maybe doesn't know, basically because Angelo and Jaden weighed in the exact same, Angelo pulled first and totaled 850. They then loaded 365 for Jaden's third, which also gave him an 850 total. But because their body weight was literally the exact same, the person that hits the total first gets the higher position. So Angelo placed second. I think on the live stream, they did say that I think Lifting Cast put their predicted placings as Jaden being ahead of Angelo. So I don't know if maybe that caused some confusion.
They probably just looked at the forecasted place and thought, oh, that's the number. Yeah, because I can't remember who was saying. I think Joey was talking to Grant, who was also helping handle. And I remember at some point someone be like, no, that's the number. Like, look at like and they pointed to the forecasting placing, I believe. But that's why, like, and this is something that when I'm mentoring other coaches, I always tell them, I say, hey, listen, you always look at the body weight first, then you look at the lot number. The forecasted doesn't really mean anything because you got to always double check that first. So yeah, definitely unfortunate as far as that. But I mean, you know, when you're in a heated battle and you're going back and forth, you're doing different things. Sometimes you're working very quickly. Things happen, but yeah, human error happens. And to be fair, it's not very often the flex team make massive mistakes when handling, right? Like it is just a human error at the end of the day. And I don't think, other than like maybe an NAPF spot that I don't know if either of them would necessarily want to do anyway, they've not really lost out on anything, right? Like it is just a case of. I mean, let's keep it a bug. Jaden won it first anyway, so it's kind of like, you know, I mean, you could tell in the back room he was pretty upset about it in the moment. Of course, I mean, who wouldn't be, especially because he had more. But I mean, ultimately, it's like Jaden's young; he's not going anywhere. He'll come back. As Jaden continues to increase his subtotal, I think that'll be interesting because like the deadlift is awesome, but obviously you can't have just the deadlift. You got to be able to like the pace. And I think it's also a thing where, you know, Joe was able to once again solidify himself kind of just as that guy, as the 83. Because I mean, at this point he has the 3 highest totals in the class. Like he's got the first, second, and third. So yeah. So congrats to Joe on that. Love to see it.
And it's another class that next year it's going to be a different story. It's going to like give Jaden another year working with his coach, like give him a bit more time, a bit more practice in competition as well. And yeah, building up the subtotal, and then it'll be a whole different ball game.
I am upset that we didn't get to see Taylor Mead because I wanted to see if he was going to announce who he's working with. I'm still, thoroughly convinced about him having a new coach at this point. So I was very curious about that.
That was my biggest, which sounds awful, but that was the thing I was most upset about when he withdrew from the competition. I was like, we're never going to find out. On his King of the Lifts episode, he did kind of hint at quite a lot of changes with his training, but he specifically was like, I don't want to go into it now. I'll maybe disclose that after. So I'm like, there's got to be something. So, and I don't think he was going to be handled by TSG. I think he was going to be handled by Matt Gary, but that's not unusual for Taylor. So like, there's so many unknowns, but we will find out one day. We will find out. And I'm very excited to find out and see if you were right here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Women's 76, that was the Cranon show, but absolutely deserved Cranon show. It was insane. Also, just realized her and Emily Reynolds weighed the exact same as well. I will say, I said on the preview, I wasn't sure who Emily Reynolds was. I actually do follow her, and I didn't realize anything she was injured going in, but she is someone that is definitely one to watch in the 76s, to be fair. Like her squat in particular is one that I've always noticed. Like I always follow a big squatter, and she was definitely like kind of nursing some injuries and stuff on that day, but she still showed up and put up a 540 total, which in the 76s is still insane. Exactly the same total as Rachel, who placed third. But I do think we do need to just highlight exactly what Cranen did in this weight class.
It was disgusting in the best of ways. Like, and it's funny because obviously, like, nobody knew exactly where she was going to be. In my mind, it's like, okay, well, she was good for 600 at Worlds. It's been months since then, so she should be good for at least around that. I think, who was it? I think it was Mo Kilos on Instagram. I think he came up to me like the day before, and he's like, where do you think Cranen's going to be? I said, well, at least in the 600. He's like, well, I can't say much, but what I can tell you is I know she squatted like 529 in training. When he told me that, I was like, and it's funny because at one point I was like, okay, I don't know where Cranen is at exactly. I said, I would think around 600. I said, but you never know. If she missed a lift, Emily may be able to pull something off. I think who was I talking to? I was talking to my client Lucky because they train in the same area. So I was like, yeah, you never know. Emily might be able to do something. Then Mo told me that. I went back to, like I said, never mind, bro. It's wraps. It's like if she's squatting what she did in training, it's wraps. And Cranen showed up. And what I would like to highlight, so we talked about how last time, her first World, she got third, last year second, and now it feels like she's very much projected for gold. But what I would like to highlight is just the improvement of her as a power lifter, not just from a strength perspective, but technique-wise. I remember one of the first times I ever trained with Cranen in Houston, Texas, and just raw strength, right? Like, just yanking the deadlift, just dropping down the squat, kind of throwing the bench. Like, she was so technically refined at this meet. Like, everything looked really clean. Her ability to execute, the squats were fantastic. Bench, room there, lots of room there. And even be able to keep in a position to fight through her deadlift, which I think the deadlift was probably the hardest looking thing on the day. And I would say, based upon her ability to grind, probably still some room there potentially. But I mean, she put on an absolute clinic. It was fantastic. I know that part of what she said was like, people think I'm just an influencer, but no, I'm here to stay. I'm here to compete. So I love that. I love when people have a narrative about somebody and they use it as fuel. They don't really talk about it until after they do what they need to do. But yeah, I mean, because was it 629, right? I believe. Yeah, like absolutely disgusting total. And I mean, it's something where it's funny because for so long I've been like one of the biggest things that upset me the most about Agata's suspension and stuff like that, which I completely disagree with, won't even get into that right now, but is that like, I really wanted to see someone finally push and challenge Amanda. But now I'm torn because I'm like, do I want to see Agata versus Amanda? Do I want to see Agata versus Cranen? I don't know which I want to see, Mark. I want to see both. But yeah, I mean, Cranen absolutely, like I said, it was a Cranen show. And it was very fun to watch. And the energy of the crowd that day for her was fantastic.
Yeah, it was clinical how she executed everything. It was perfect 9 for 9 day. For context, she squatted 8.5, I think, kilos above the world record squat. The world record squat is currently 231.5 by Carlina, who we know is a fantastic squatter.
Yes.
And Cranen squatted 240, and I think there was still a bit of room there. She benched 127. She pulled 261.5, which is also half a kilo below the world record deadlift as well, to total 629, which I think is about half a kilo or a kilo above the world record total. I would love, obviously, I don't agree with Agata being banned. I want Agata to be at Worlds, and I have no doubt that when she comes back, she will be a whole other animal again. Like, she will be ahead. But it's the thing of, if she was to be at this Worlds and if she was able to battle with Cranen in the 76s, even if Agata was stronger, she would have to hit. She would have to go perfect day to secure the win. Like, it would be a fight. And that's really exciting to see. Like, unbelievably exciting to see. And I'm sure you followed her from fairly early on as well, like with Cranen, you could tell, like you said, she wasn't that technical before. She was literally just raw strength, and she was hitting some crazy numbers with just raw brute strength, but she wasn't consistent. It was obvious she was always going to be incredible if she stuck with this.
Yes.
But to get here this fast with everything else she does, she was powerlifting, obviously she is a powerlifter and that is her main sport kind of thing now. And she obviously does what she needs to do to succeed. But it's not her everything. She has a lot of other stuff she's doing too. And she's making this progress.
Yeah. I mean, it's been, I think, 3 years, right? It's been 3 years and already at the top of the sport, which kind of makes me think about your hot take on the Barbells and BS podcast. But it's she's an athlete. That's the thing. and you can just always tell when someone's an athlete and you see where they're at, you're just like, okay, if they stick with it, they get a good coach, they refine things. But how often do we see that not happen? We see the potential, but people get distracted by their things or they don't get quite in groove. But I mean, she has just very clearly gotten so much better every single year. So it's been very interesting to see, very exciting to see. And I'm curious to see what she's going to put up at Worlds. I mean, I think she looks capable of 640 plus if she really goes out there and pushes everything. Obviously, she shouldn't do that. I don't think there'll be a need to do that at Worlds. I think that's what's cool. We got to kind of see where she's at for nationals. Now she can hopefully kind of cruise through Worlds. Then it makes Sheffield very interesting, you know. So yeah, it'll be good to see.
I also think with the following she has, which a lot of her followers are not powerlifters, someone like her winning Sheffield, what would that do for our sport as well?
There's a lot for the sport. Yes. Yeah,
100%. Moving on to the 84s, this was also a very exciting battle. Obviously, we know Amanda is the best 84 in America. She doesn't show up to nationals. She doesn't need to. That's fine. But what is really cool is seeing the women show up and still battle. First 3 to 4th, it was a 600 total down to a 580 total. But second place was 598, third place was 590, and then Tiffany Savage in 4th with 580. All 4 of these women are insanely strong, and to see them all battling was just incredible to watch. Yeah.
No, it's 84s, and we talked about this on the previous show too, where it's just like it used to be a thing where just quite frankly wasn't that fun of a class to watch. At least here in the States, I can't speak for every other nation, but it just wasn't that fun to watch because like Amanda's going to win, everyone's going to be way behind, and if you were behind, there's still a big gap between second and third. But now, once again, it's a thing where you can be the strongest on the day and still lose because you have to hit lifts, you have to make attempts. So it was the most entertaining 84 battle that I personally watched at nationals over these years. And to see how close everybody was and how a lot of the placings did come down to like the final deadlift, I thought that was really, really good. And once again, it's similar to LA, but a different way where unfortunately I don't think any of these ladies will get the recognition they probably really should get because Amanda exists and is so far ahead and so dominant. But yeah, it was very entertaining to watch. And this was cool because like for me, this was like the first primetime session at a national since like 2019 that I was able to actually watch since Peachy Wood didn't do 93s. I said I just got to watch the whole thing. And just as a fan of the sport, it was awesome. Like watching Crandon do her thing, watch the 84s battle it up. And I'm curious because typically based off a battle like this, you can kind of see and think about where you're going to project everybody for the following year. I truly don't know. Like, I think the way the standings were this time for like even the top 5 can drastically change next year because if we look through some of their history, some of them got a pretty big boost, some of them only increased so much, some of them fell short of what we expected based upon their training. So it's going to be interesting to see where this class is at in another year.
I also didn't realize, and I can't remember off the top of my head, Nicolette, who won, she tried to pull 269.5 her third pull. She already totaled 600. She'd already secured the win by then, but that would be breaking Amanda's deadlift record.
Yeah.
So, and that I don't think, I could be wrong. I'm going to double check this. I don't know how long Nicolette's been around, but I don't remember seeing her previous years. So kind of on your note there, you know, if she is progressing and fairly new still, where is she going to be next year? Because also a 600 total in the 84s, which I think, you know, the 84s is definitely still a developing class. And we've had quite a few 76s that are really competitive, like Carlina, for example, moving up this year. But 600 as an 84 the last few years would have definitely been top 5 at Worlds, probably podium. Because I think Zayana from the UK, she regularly comes second at Worlds the last few years with like a 5 to 615-ish total, I think. And obviously then Amanda's ahead. But from there, you know, that 600 would have potentially given her a third at Worlds, which is an insane feat in itself. And like you kind of said, you know, these girls probably won't get the credit they deserve just because it is overshadowed with someone like Amanda. Same with Elliot with Austin.
Yeah. And what's interesting about it too is like so it's starting next year, since everyone will have to do nationals. So Amanda will have to do national to get a world spot. And of course she's ahead. And it's interesting because the narrative's a little bit different now because obviously at Sheffield, she actually finally got that improvement on her total that's been kind of sitting around the same spot for some years. But it still begs the question of, okay, well, if your improvement stays at that rate though, and you don't progress that much, and these other girls do keep progressing, what does that look like? We don't know. I'm obviously, like, if I'm a betting man, I'm still putting my money on Amanda. I think it'd be insane not to. But it is interesting just to see where things are at. And I think it just shows, even if you're at the top, you have to constantly keep getting better because the gene pool keeps expanding in our sport. And you just never know when someone's going to just like have things click and start popping off. So.
Yeah, exactly that. And the 84 class is definitely growing at a really good rate. There's more and more women kind of sitting there and competing in that class. So we will see what happens next year. 84 plus. This was actually really interesting. You know, it's usually the Bonica show. She doesn't have to push very hard. But this year with, I think her name's Victoire, she kept Bonica honest and she made Bonica have to push. Bonica squatted 275. And I don't think we've seen her squat that heavy in a long time. And, you know, she's never needed to. For years, she's not needed to win. Whereas this year, you know, she couldn't play it safe through squats and bench because if she did, she may well have fell behind because Victoire did have the big, well, not on the day because she took such a big jump, but, you know, Victoire does have the bigger deadlift, I think, when you look on paper. So she had to keep honest. And she ended up totaling 662.5 Bonica to take the win. You know, she'd won it, I think, I'm guessing from the maths by her second pull. But that obviously depended on what Victoire kind of managed to walk away with. But it was good to just see Bonica actually be pushed and have to push a little bit more than normal because obviously Bonica is insanely strong still and she's a really accomplished lifter. Yes, when you look at the world stage now and you have like Brittany and Sunita, in comparison, it doesn't quite look the same, but like, you can't take away from the fact that 662.5 is still a humongous total. A woman squatting 275 is still an incredible feat of strength.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time we saw anyone really be able to rival Bonica here in the States was Alexis Jones back in 2024. So to see someone do that, and honestly, I think based upon what we've been seeing from Bonica recently, like I said, I think she showed up stronger than what a lot of us projected her for, just based upon what she was doing. So it's always interesting to see someone kick it into a second gear when they're pushed. But once again, what does this look like next year? Like I don't know. If I was, this would be something where I probably wouldn't bet on it because it's like it as close as it already was. Yeah, we'll just have to see. We'll have to see. But yeah, I think I want to say outside of course, the 69 battle, I want to say on well, I can't even say that. And I love that I can't say that. This was like, for the women's side, one of the better nationals that I've been to. And it's so good to see that because, yes, the main battle was with the 69s, but there was something entertaining every day for the women's session. So I just love that side of the sport is just getting elevated up because we need it to. I like that we're getting more personalities, you know, like Janae, who spice things up a little bit. It's just that competitiveness. If we want the sport to grow as a whole, we need both the men's side and women's side to continuously get better. And I think we're definitely seeing that progression now, which is awesome.
Yeah, without a doubt. So that is the women's side done. Moving on to the men's 93, which I think, to quote you, this is going to be the best battle or weight class battle we've ever seen in the sport, which, to be fair, it was incredible. As expected, the totals obviously weren't as high as, you know, as they potentially could have been. But I think we said, or I think you pointed out on the preview show, no one's prep going in looked that great. A lot of people weren't really showing a lot. You also mentioned earlier that two people had the same body weight. So Dominique Fuqua and Gavin Aiden both weighed in at 91.62, and they came second and third here. I'll let you talk to that.
I've never seen that many people weigh the same at a meet ever in nationals, like constantly. That's like what, 4 times then, I think, at that point? That's wild. But yeah, I would say so. Yeah, like I said, definitely had the potential to be the greatest 93 battle, and it is definitely up there. I will say, I think in the aftermath, I would say between Peachy and Russ both having to drop, and then where the totals actually landed, not quite the greatest 93 battle. I think we've had as well as we could probably ring above it, but it's definitely up there and had the potential for it. And it was, once again, I'm glad I got to just sit back and kind of watch this. And I know Peachy was actually commentating it, which I thought was really a really smart choice to have a 93 be able to commentate that. But yeah, like nobody necessarily had the best. I mean, Will Ball, for example, who obviously won, had to get a new coach like 3 weeks out. So that was interesting. And then I think my understanding is Dom, from talking to Steve, Dom actually had a pretty good prep. I think at one point he had like a slight little like tweak on squat or whatever for like a couple weeks, but I think Dom had a really good prep. But nobody else did. I mean, Gavin was hurt. I think even the young guy, Dimitri Ayala, my understanding is he was actually in the hospital the night before. And still, and I don't think the live stream, but he still showed up and competed. Because I think I really see, but he still showed up and competed. Jordan McKinley, I think, actually had a pretty good prep. Kyle De Leon, who we definitely got to talk about because of where he was projected at and where he came in, that was crazy. Delaney Wallace, where do you want to start? Where do you want to start? Because there's so much to get into with the 93s.
I think the thing that I want to start with, which isn't a surprise, is Gavin Aiden's attempt selection. Only Gavin can take those jumps, still go 7 for 9 and finish on the podium in a weight class like that.
Yeah. Gavin burns his shit. Well, I guess not quite on the deadlift. I think the dead was actually like the smarter call. But yeah, it's funny because talking to his coach, John Song, and knowing that Gavin was hurt, not having good prep. But one thing John said, and I give him credit, he's like, yeah, this thing, man, Gavin just pulls off crazy stuff on meet day. He's like, it'll be a thing where there's no reason this should happen. He'll even surprise me, just pull it off on meet day. And he definitely did. I think it makes me curious as to if he hadn't gotten hurt, where his strength would have been to fall right below 900. And on a 7 for 9 day at that, just very, very impressive. And yeah, the jumps they get coming from Coach Kraft, the guy who's kind of known for the jumps. His jumps are insane. It's so funny to see.
I think the squat one. So for squat, he jumped from a 310 opener that he missed, I think on depth, to a 340 second that he did hit. He then failed 350 on strength, I believe.
Yes.
I wasn't that surprised on squat. I expect him to do that on squat.
Yeah.
It was bench for me. He opened at 190, which is a pretty low opener for Gavin, but he hadn't really shown his prep. And I think Gavin failing a 350 squat, obviously 350 is some massive squat, but I would have expected after all the time since his last comp and the previous squats he's done, that to kind of be there if he was feeling strong and feeling good, right? He opened on a 190 bench and jumped to 220. And I remember on commentary, they joked that he might jump 30 kilos. And then they looked and he actually put in a 30 kilo jump, which would make sense if 220 was pretty comfortable for him. But his third was only 2.5 more.
Right.
I will never, I'm not going to be able to understand it, but it makes it fun. It makes it entertaining, if nothing else. And he pulled it off.
John, what the plan was, if they're just going for broke on the seconds or what, I don't know. But I mean, it was awesome. It was awesome to see.
Yeah. He obviously wasn't at his peak strength because his deadlift was down quite a lot as well. And he ended with 897.5, which is obviously still a phenomenal total anyway. And he still ended on the podium, which I think for Gavin, at a meet where he's not fully healthy and training's not been great, it's still obviously kind of good. And I'll let you talk about Kyle. I'm not that familiar with Kyle, to be fair. Again, it's a name I know. He ended up placing 7th. I think he hit a decent total PB and he missed his final pull.
Yeah. So what's interesting about Kyle De Leon, because he's from my state actually. And he was a 83 at one point, actually. Now he's a 93. But what's interesting is if you look at where he was projected coming in, he almost got 3rd. And the reason why it was interesting is because of the execution. So he went 3 for 3 on the squats, buried his squats. Because I will say this, and this is me just no dog in the fight, especially when doing it. I thought a lot of those squats that passed were high. Like I thought a lot of the squats for the 93s, it's like y'all would be cooked at Worlds. Like I thought a lot of them were high.
I will just say on that note, and I know it's a thing that everyone kind of says about the American standards for depth, right? So I was speaking to some people the other day and we were talking about, the whole debate of whether it's travel knocking their totals down when they then go to international. I do genuinely think it's the reffing standards, and that is not the athlete's fault. And I'm not going to say it's the ref's fault either, because, you do your best on the day. But some of the standards passing, like when I think about like British nationals is always like it's harsher than when I did Commonwealth, right? British nationals reffing. If I pass at British nationals, I know if I went to Worlds, I'll be good because the standards are pretty much the same. Whereas I think a lot of the hits on totals come from American nationals allowing things to pass that definitely wouldn't at a Worlds level. Yeah.
The problem I think in America is, and I can say as America, it's the consistency. That's the issue. It's that some of the judges are very strict, but it's just you don't know what you're getting. It can be a different platform on the same day and you're getting completely different calls. So that's one thing I will say. But to my point, Kyle executed, like buried his squats, went off on the bench, and then on 8 he was pulling his 3rd pull would have given a 900 kg total. So if we just look at where he was projected before then, the fact that he was even in a position to pull for podium was very, very impressive. And it's like, okay, where are you going to be by this time next year, right? So that was very impressive to me. Like I said, Dimitri Ayala didn't quite have the day that he wanted, but once again, he was sick and hospitalized the day before. But another young dude who's coming up. Let's talk about Delaney next. I think we got to talk about Delaney because it's one of these things where, for me, my two dark horses were Dom and Delaney. And I'd say more so Delaney just because I didn't consider Dom truly a dark horse. I don't know why people continue to sleep on Dominique when he is one of the few guys who already had 900 total. He swung into third last year, and this time did the same thing, getting second. So I don't know where in a lot of the promotion people were sleeping. I don't understand, but hopefully that's done. But for me, the reason why Delaney was a dark horse is because it was a few days before Nats when we had landed. Petrie actually got to train with Delaney, and he comes back to the interview and tells me, he's like, bro, Delaney is strong. He's like, I just trained with Delaney is strong. I was like, okay, let's see what he can do. And he showed up, man. He showed up very well. And I think he was the only one who, despite the day that Will was having, didn't give up on himself, like actually still tried to go for it and push him with that last deadlift. And once again, this is only Delaney's second meet in the class. He's obviously a little bit heavier than what he was at SPD Austin, but I'm excited to see where he continues to go. And it's funny because we knew he would get a big boost for going 93 because he was so lean at 83. But even if you see him as 93, he's still quite lean, with quite a bit of room to fill out. But yeah, I think Delaney absolutely showed out. And I knew Delaney was going to be on some different energy when he wasn't dancing. Like he didn't come out and dance for anything. So I was like, oh, my guy's here to like do something. So I thought Delaney really, put up a good performance. I think that would have given that last pull would have given him 9:17.5, I believe, because Will had 9:15 by his second pull. So would have ensured that Will had to hit his third, which in hindsight he would have. But shout out to him for actually not just actually being willing to push it. He could have settled for second, but he still went for the goal, and I have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, literally, Delaney's total was 2.5 behind the 900 that came second, right? Like he was more than capable of getting himself in that second spot comfortably because his 335 was a comfortable second. And he said after that he was surprised the 355 didn't move. I think he'd hit more than that in training. Yeah, squats for me were where I was like, no, he is in the battle for possibly not first, because I think Will Ball, coming in, he was pretty confident. He's young. His 920 was good.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have probably expected anyone else to challenge him really, but equally, you just never know with the 93s. But Delaney, I would say, he was definitely the second strongest on that platform that day.
Easily.
Like without a doubt. And so he hit 10 kilos more than he hit at his first meet as a 93 back at SPD Austin. And that's not a true representation. You know, he would have had at least another 10, probably 15 on his total, depending on what they put in for that final pull.
Yeah.
Give him another year as a 93, because I don't think he's really filled the class yet.
No, not at all.
He's got a lot of room. And I think he used to have to cut quite a bit for 83 because he was very lean as an 83.
Exactly.
So give him another year.
Delaney's in the 900s. We know this strength-wise. We know this already. So that's huge. Will obviously came in, executed, had a perfect day, right? The only thing I will say that I am only somewhat concerned about too is, and let me be clear, like if I'm going based off what the rules are, like Will complete everything to standard. His squats were good. I just know IPF depth is still a little bit different, and that's like whereas Kyle Sunk is and whereas Will's, I'm passing that based off the rules, but I know there's some judges on the world level who wouldn't. So I think if they just really solidify that, he'll be good. But I'm still happy because a narrative for Will was like, okay, he did a local meet, but now he's young in a head-to-head battle, has to be on the national platform, national standards, and I mean he did it. He had a perfect day, hit 930. So I mean he showed up, he executed, and once again, kind of like going. Once squats were done, it's kind of like, okay, it's kind of his to lose. If he just hits, he's got it. So that was very interesting, and I'm very curious to see how he does at the world level, like against Emil and Gustav. That's going to be very, very entertaining to see. He obviously has the highest top end right now, but once again, first time traveling that far, different standards, how we hold up. Obviously, as an American, I'm hoping he holds up well and does his thing, but it'll be interesting to see. I think something that probably surprised a lot of people, but actually didn't surprise me that much was Keiko.
Yeah.
And the reason being, and I think we talked about this briefly on the preview show, but the thing for me, and when I said, hey, no one's really had the prep thing we wanted, because everyone afterwards was talking and being very surprised, like, yeah, man, Keiko's talking so much on his stories about hitting this PR and that PR and the strongest he's ever felt. And it's funny, 'cause I said this in front of Joey, and Joey actually like confirmed. I was like, well, that's why I knew he was Cap. I was like, because everyone calls Keiko Mr. Consistent, and Mr. Consistent consistently posts his PRs when he hits them. There is no world where Keiko's hitting all these PRs and not posting them. So the fact that he was talking about it, but then wasn't posting them, I was like, I don't think his training is going as well as what he's saying. And Joey afterwards even confirmed. Joe was like, yeah, if someone's behavior patterns change, things probably aren't going the way they want it to. And I also believe like between losing his dog and stuff like that, I think even though he had been on the roster, I think he mentally truly committed to it like 5 weeks out or something like that. And, Keiko's always been in the game for a very long time. He's not going anywhere. I think he's capable of much more. But I wasn't super shocked that he kind of landed where he did, because I was just like, I don't think it's like last year we had all that time off and was strong. Because last year, all that time off, and he was posting PR after PR after PR. And I, as a coach, right, I have to pay attention to that. It's like I got to pay attention to people's behavior patterns. So, yeah.
Yeah. What's also interesting as well, Keiko did mention potentially moving up as well.
Yeah.
So we'll see obviously what happens there. Like as a 93 on his best day, he hit around the 920 mark, right? What's that extra body weight going to look like for him? Where's he going to be with a bit of time in that? I don't know. There's so many unknowns with the 93s. You literally just don't know. And again, it's that thing of, if this is where we are now, where are we going to be in 12 more months? Yeah. I will just say on the Will Bull thing as well, he's another lifter that is really young, but he clearly had the right mindset. He talked a bit of smack and stuff going in, but he said on the day he didn't pay attention to anything. He didn't know what was going on. He was in his own world. And when you're in a battle with so many huge names that have been around for such a long time and have got a legacy within the sport, it must be really easy to get lost in that and just almost like just the pressure get to you. Not only did he go 9 for 9 and hit everything to standard, and I agree with you, I think they looked to standard. It wasn't like a controversial call. Like I think they were all good lifts. He also added 10 kilos to what he did at the local meet.
Exactly.
So he showed that he can do more than 920 on a bigger stage. And I think the fact that the pressure clearly didn't affect him at all going into this one, hopefully that means for the next one it won't as well. So we will kind of see. And also, like, he changed coaches like 3 weeks out. So that can't have been the most optimal thing. I think he said he was training like 7 days a week as well. So I'm very intrigued to see what was going on there.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. And I think Will's the type of person where he even talked about it, where it's like, he was just letting Evan and then my client Pat, who like I think is like a secondary handler, just letting them make the calls. He's like, tell me what to load, I'll go lift it. And that really, I think, is the best thing you can do in that type of battle, because if you get to kind of what other people are doing or what you think you have to do instead of just executing what your coach lays out, I mean, we see the difference it makes. But yeah, and really that's why I would say as entertaining and awesome as it was, the interview of the session, it was great. But the reason why I say it probably wasn't the battle we quite thought it was going to be is because it kind of was the Will show for really the entire time. Yeah. But it was good to see him be able to go out there, execute everything to standard. And I think so long as he does that, maybe oversinks his squat a little bit more just to be safe for the IPF world stage. You just never know with that. I think he's going to be in a very good spot. So I'm very excited to see what he looks like in June.
Yeah, completely agree. We will rattle through the next. I realize we've been talking for a while. We've got the men's 105. The main storyline here was going in was Will Anthony out to Keenan here at Sheffield. We all, I think, expected he probably would, just because Sheffield wasn't his strongest, or not even that it wasn't his strongest day. Like things just didn't quite go how they kind of were expected to. There's been a lot of talk of him kind of going for 1,000 and stuff like that. And I mean, I personally think he, on a maybe like a perfect day, he'd have 1,000, but I don't think he's quite there yet. But I do think it's coming at some point. But for him, he only basically had to hit what he hit last year at Nationals, right? Which he did it last year. So the pressure wasn't massively on him. No one was kind of close. The next best total was 920. Still a really respectable total. But yeah, Anthony going in. Did you watch this one too closely? Because you were handling in the 120s, weren't you? Were you handling this one as well?
Yes, I also was handling in the 105s. I had my client April was in the 105s. So yeah, so I had April for 105, Ashton for 120, and then Karen for 120 plus. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was able to watch Anthony's list. Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go first then and kind of give your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, for the 105s, it's pretty much is Anthony going to hit the total or not. My understanding is their goal was pretty much have everything wrapped up by seconds, which they essentially did. I think the only surprising thing was Anthony's third squat. I would say based on how his second moved, I think most of us thought that third would be there comfortably. And I know it was, I think Susie was actually the one directly handling him because John had like 4 or 5 105s going at the same time as well, stuff like that. But I think besides that, I mean, he had a very, very clean day. I know that he started cramping on deadlifts. He's thinking a little bit too much sodium. So he as smooth as the second was, he actually knew he wouldn't be good for another one if anything happened. So I'm glad he got that locked in. But to your point, I think we were all very confident that he was going to be able to lock that in. Just because, I mean, I think he was good for that, if not a little bit more at Sheffield. Just didn't get quite some of the calls he wanted. But I mean, yeah, he came in, got it done. And in hindsight, I think it's, even though, he didn't get to go for third deadlift, I think it's actually good. I think it's just a need to push more than what you need, hit what you need to, recover well. Sure, I just did a 5-week turnaround and just pace yourself going up. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad he managed to pull it off. I mean, I love Keenan as well. But it's kind of this thing where whenever someone puts them in a situation where they have to do something like that, you don't want to see them fail the goal, right? So yeah, I think Anthony did well. But I mean, the 105 class as a whole is definitely very, very strong. Once again, it's kind of this thing where most of these guys aren't going to get any type of credit because Anthony exists. But yeah, the 105s are definitely a strong class. And I think even the guy who got second, I mean, I don't know if anyone was expecting him to show up and hit the numbers that he did. And really, funnily enough, if not for Anthony's bench being so absurd, then, that could have even been kind of interesting. Because I remember I was looking at the numbers, I was like, oh, wait, does Anthony have something to worry about? And then I get to the bench and I was like, oh, no, he's chilling.
Yeah, squats and deadlifts, they were pretty much the exact same, near enough. Yeah, it was just Anthony's bench, which I think was an unofficial world record as well. So he just showed up. And I don't think it looked that max effort, if I remember rightly, either. And yeah, I think he did what he had to do. There's not really much more to say. I agree with you that I think the third squat was a bit of a surprise he didn't have it. I think his depth definitely looked more convincing than it has done. I do think he is someone that is generally going to be fairly borderline. I just obviously hope by Worlds it is just completely undeniable, just with the IPF reffing. And then, yeah, we'll see what he can obviously put up come Worlds and then Sheffield. But I can't think off the top of my head what other 105s would be close to that at Worlds, unless Keenan gets a spot again. I'm not sure around the world who else would kind of be close. I know we've got strong 105s in GB, but
yeah, no, I think we'll be able to cruise comfortably at Worlds and then try to really blow it up at Sheffield. So
yeah. Right. So we'll move on to the 120s. One thing I will actually say, I think Anthony and Ashton with the 120s mentioned was the new Alico bar being so whippy. I think that threw a lot of people off. Obviously not Ashton, and we'll talk about what he did in a second, but I wonder if that's part of what impacted Anthony's third squat, to be fair.
I think so. I think he even mentioned that actually on his White Light Media's podcast. He talked about that. And I mean, a lot of people were talking about that throughout the entire week. Thankfully, we kind of prepared for that because they used that bar at SBD Austin. Granted, Ashton even set the bar here for a little bit whippier, but this is exactly why oftentimes when Ashton has some of his biggest 800-pound squats, we put him on a Texas Power Bar. We put him with pound plates because we're like, we got to get make it as hard as possible so that way it feels a little bit better on the platform. But yeah, we can get into the 120s. Obviously, I was there, but I'll let you start this time around. You can give your perspective, and then I can fill in whatever gaps.
I don't even know where to start. It was incredible to watch. Like, I'm a big Ashton fan anyway. I think, like we kind of mentioned earlier with like Leanne, obviously Ashton's in the military. He's got a family. He's a very busy person, and I think you're quite open about the fact that you have to adapt a lot of things around his lifestyle, and you might find something that's working really well in training, and then his lifestyle changes and you have to change it all up, right? The respect I have for someone that, like you said, when he takes his heavy squats in training, he'll make it harder for himself because he knows then when he gets on the platform, everything will feel easier and he'll feel in control of things. So to see Ashton come out with a win, I was very happy to see. But what was also really cool to see was he was kind of kept honest going through. It was Brendan, wasn't it? Him and Brendan were pretty close going in. Like, after squats, in my head, unless Ashton kind of did fall quite far behind, he was probably fine. But I didn't realize the gap on bench going in because I wasn't that familiar with Brendan going in. So it was really interesting the whole way through. I think it did come down to deadlifts. I can't do the maths in my head looking at lift and cast, but I think it did literally come down to deadlifts. So like, it wasn't like after bench it was closed up. Like, they were still pretty close together. And obviously you can confirm that in a bit more detail when we go through it. But seeing Ashton in the 120s, weighing 111 as well. Like, when I say in the 120s, barely, right? He could still make 105 pretty comfortably. Squatting over 400, not just squatting over 400. Like, Ashton generally has a shaky walkout, doesn't he? Like, it's a pretty common thing. I think that was the best walkout I've seen him on, like a 370 plus squat. To then see him knowing that he can grind, he can push through, like, he's not going to quit under the bar, make 400 move pretty much identical to his second. was unbelievable. Like, there was room on the bar. That alone made me confident that he was probably going to win just because he looked so on. But to see a 111 kilogram man squatting over 400 is like, I don't know that we'll, other than Ashton, I don't know whether we'll see that again. If we do, when, like, it's a long time away. I don't have tons of other notes really, just apart from the fact that it was just an unbelievable feat to watch. And actually, obviously we've got Rondell at Worlds in the 120s, but I assume if Ashton can go, it's going to be, he might not be up there with Rondell, for example, but where will he be? His bench is slowly coming back. His bench, and I think he said on the White Lights podcast as well that his bench has made a lot more progress after the last few months than it kind of did most of last year. So there's still, hopefully, add another few kilos to that again. There was room on the squat. What he would be willing to take at Worlds, I have no idea. And then the deadlift, I can't remember off the top of my head how it moved, but he finished with a 380 pull, which I think is around his best from before.
Yes. Yeah. So it's funny because a lot of people on the King Lift podcast, for example, a lot of people are actually projecting Brendan Todd over Ashton, mainly because he hit that 821 squat in training. I believe Brendan hit. He has the bigger bench. And I think the main reason why a lot of people did is because they weren't sure where Ashton's bench would be because of it. But the thing that people had to account for is, one, not having to, cut to 105 this time around, having that extra recovery for a little bit of body weight. And then something you noted first is oftentimes with Ashton's lifestyle, we constantly have to change things. Thankfully, the way we trained him in the SPD Austin, the way we paced everything, it worked so well that this time we were able to do the exact same thing. So we already knew that was going to be huge, being able to run the exact same type of programming, just pacing a little bit more aggressively, still very submax, but relative to the fact that he is walking around heavier was very, very useful for that. And with that being said, of course, Ashton at this point is used to being in battles. He's used to people maybe thinking like, oh yeah, it's Ashton, but man, he might mess up. He might get counted out. And he just uses it as fuel. As do I, because at this point, I'm just like, man, how many times does my guy have to prove himself? He's been in the sport longer than what some of these people have been alive for. But with that being said, we knew that we would have to have a perfect day to win because of how strong Brendan's bench is, and Brendan Todd is interesting because his second attempts can look so hard, and he can still go up and have more for his third. And even on his third squat, I mean, he didn't get it because of a depth call, I believe, but he still hit the actual lift. But yeah, going into the squats, funny enough, we actually, on the highest end, we actually had Ashton's reach option as 408.5. We felt that confident in his squat because even though we only hit 835 in training because of how we pace things, we always go, okay, this is what we hit, but what do we feel good for on the day? His heaviest squat in training was 835 and he felt good for 870. So our mindset going in is, okay, if we hit our second squat around like an 850 threshold, 852 pounds, and it moves at the same speed or better than 835, we know we'll be good for it, and then we can kind of go from there. The big thing was after seeing Brendan's second squat, right? After Ashton took his second and seeing what they put in for Brendan's third, my mentality was, okay, I don't think we need that. I think he's good enough for it, but I think the 400.5 will set us up very well. And the one thing I told Ashton was, I said, hey, man, like, you're doing everything you need to. Well, I told many things to Ashton. I talked very crazy to Ashton before these squats, as you can imagine, we kind of need to. But the one more technical thing I told him, I said, hey, man, you're taking your time. I said, but I just need to take a little bit more time. On this last one, you unrack, just hold it for like a second longer. Really be intentional with that walkout, and you'll blow it up. And to your point, I've never seen Ashton look so – I mean, it's the most weight he's ever had on his back, and I've never seen him look that stable with 800-plus squats. The extra body weight obviously helps, but also just – like I said, making the circumstances harder. And Ashton was just locked into a completely different place mentally, emotionally for those squats. But to see, I knew it was going to move, but to move that fast, I was losing my mind. It was incredible to see it move that fast. Like, I knew it was going to be good, but it's like you said, to be as good as the second was just, was incredible. So very exciting to know that there's lots of room there. On bench, our goal was to land between 200 and 205. We felt like if we were just in that mark, we'd be in a good spot. We landed at 202.5. And I mean, his bench opened was great. Second was smooth. A little bit of work on the third. You can see the pec kind of kick in a little bit. At this point, though, Ashton's pec is the healthiest it's been since the tear. Now it's just getting used to the heavier loads again and just building things up from there. And then with Dallas, yeah, we just played the game. One thing I will say is after Ashton's second pull and then watching Brendan's second pull, I'm sitting there having to decide what number we need to put in to kind of close it up. And I was kind of caught between 377.5 and 380. And a lot of people are like, man, 377.5 is enough. You saw how hard Brendan's second was. And I was like, yeah, but every second attempt he's done today has been hard and he's still gone up. So I'm sitting there trying to decide. And I just turn my head and I see Brendan Todd just walking back and forth so aggressively, like he's ready to kill somebody. And I was just like, oh, no, this dude's on. I'm putting it 980. Like I go to Ash, I said, can you pull 980? And Ash was like, yes, sir. I was like, you're getting 980 because I cannot risk anything. I need to make sure this guy's out of reach. But yeah, it did come down to that because Ashton pulled his 980. Then Brendan had to try to pull him. Wasn't able to. Got to about his knees, I believe. But yeah, it was quite a battle, and I'm very, very excited because, you know, to your point, even though we know where Rondell's going to be, if we can keep pacing the way that we need to, I definitely believe Ashton would be able to still get enough over the current world record total, lock in a second round Sheffield spot. Yeah. And then from there, we kind of have our option. Do we do 120? Do we do 105? It'll just depend on how he's feeling, assuming he's able to go with his military duties and whatnot. But yeah, incredibly proud of Ash. I mean, he had a perfect day. And for me, that squat was the highlight of the week for sure.
Yeah, I think of all the lifts I watched over the entire competition, that is the one that sticks out the best in my mind. Like, obviously, it's a huge feat of strength going over 400 anyway, but to do it at 111, and obviously Ashton's always been a big squatter, but I don't think I've ever seen a third move that easily for him either. Like, it was just a whole nother ball game. I also forgot about his third bench until you just mentioned it, but I remember I rewound the live stream like 3 times because you can see the difference in his pecs. Yeah. And I was like, has he just hurt himself again? Like, I was like, oh my God, like what has just happened? Like, hopefully after all this rehab, they haven't just taken a step back. Yeah. But I assume everything was fine.
Yeah.
Another note as well, like with Brendan, had he hit that third, which you said he fouled on technicality, even with missing his final pull, his total would have been 980. Like, that's how good of a lifter he is. And Ashton obviously finished with 983. And obviously your attempts and stuff would have changed had he hit that. And, you know, you'd have potentially had to push a bit more across the board or whatever. But that's going to be like, if Ashton does decide to stay 120, even as a light 120, whatever he decides to do, obviously Bob will probably be back next year as well. Like we don't really know with the 120s, but Brendan, you can't count that out.
He's in the mix for sure. Yeah. And I think what's exciting about Ashton is, I mean, he sat this way just from November to now. So it's like, where is he going to be if he does decide to stay? And a lot of that's really what Ashton decides. Is it oftentimes has less to do with what he wants to do and more to do with what the military needs him to do. Like, hey, do we need you to drop weight, not drop weight? But either way, it's very, very exciting because that was awesome. And between Ashton and Bob and Brendan, like, yeah, next year is going to be something else. So it'll be good to see.
Yeah, we'll very quickly just go through the 120s, which, to be fair, I don't have tons to say on. Jesus obviously was always going to win pretty comfortably. He definitely didn't have his best day, but he's had a lot of personal stuff kind of going on that obviously would have impacted things. But he still came out and he didn't, to be fair to him, he wasn't that far off his best total. It was like 52. Well, I can't remember what he hit at his recent meet, but he's like 50 kilos, 40 kilos off the world record total.
Yeah.
Only squatting 440, probably the most ridiculous statement ever. But for him, obviously only squatting 440, pulled a deadlift PB, which, to be fair to him, was probably the cleanest I've seen his heavy pulls probably ever. He's definitely tightened that up. Whether that was cleaner because he obviously didn't have the tiredness from that third squat kind of carrying through, we'll obviously wait to see. But he kind of proved, because obviously last year at Worlds, he couldn't quite total enough to get the Sheffield invite. He kind of proved this time that he can get within that range without really having to go all out. So Worlds this year, they can, I think when you're that heavy, you can't go all out that close together. They can probably just cruise through his training and then ramp it up post-Worlds into that November Sheffield, keep him healthy, give him more time to kind of focus on anything going on in his personal life and kind of, you know, not be 100% all into these heavy loads all the time. And then just, slowly ramp it up post-Worlds, because he came in strong enough at this meet under far less than ideal circumstances and still put up what he needed to.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I was very happy to see Jesus do his thing. Like you said, didn't even take a third squat. Heaviest deadlift that we've seen, right? Very, very clean. And, you know, to do that after losing his mom as well, because I even got to talk to him like the day before and the morning of, and he's like, yeah, man, like, you know, a lot of what I do was because of her, and I want to continue to do this for her. And I just love that, because, like, if somebody takes a step back or a stall or something like that, no one's going to fault you for that. No one's going to think less of you for that. But the fact that he let it be more motivation for him to keep doing it, I love that. Absolutely. And then, yeah, I mean, beyond Jesus, it was kind of a battle like for podium. My client Carrington unfortunately got called for depth on his third squat. If not for that, I think we would have had second relatively locked in, because the fact is we still were able to pull for third with a 402.5 that he got right to lockout, then it slipped out of his hands. But it was a good back and forth as far as 120 plus is. It's something where it's like, once again, Jesus just so far ahead. But I think what's cool about that is you kind of get to watch Jesus do his thing and still have a fun battle for podium as far as second and third. So yeah, it was exciting all the way through, honestly. And I think between seeing Anthony do his thing in the first fight with the 105s and seeing Ashton Jesus do his thing, it was just really good, exciting energy throughout.
Yeah, I also think with the 120 plus, something that makes it such an exciting class is the jumps they have to take from attempt to attempt. Like when you look at the totals, your lifter ended on 905 and then Robert, who came second, 970. It looks worlds apart, but it's really not. It's the case of two attempts, basically.
Yeah.
It's the jumps they have to take, and that's why Jesus at Worlds last year didn't get the Sheffield spot, because I think they played squats a bit conservative because he didn't quite feel healthy, and they were like, oh, it's fine, we'll make it up on the deadlift. And he just happened to, I think if I'm remembering rightly, miss like his third pull because he had to take such a big jump. It's not that he probably wasn't strong enough on the day, it's just the way it works. When you're lifting that sheer amount of load, you have to take the big jumps, and the placings get so skewed because of it. It does just make it super exciting.
Exactly. I mean, because I think we jumped from like 370 to 402.5 on Carrington's last deadlift. And originally our second was going to actually be 375. But we're like, hey, at this point, we need as much energy for that third as possible. Bump down and go for that. So, yeah, it's context is everything, right? When we're looking at these score sheets and everything like that. But, yeah, I mean, across the board, I think that's the best part. Every single primetime session was exciting for this Powerlifting American Nationals. And I think next year is just going to blow out the wall. I think next year will be the closest we've gotten to like our 2019 Nationals before there was the split and stuff like that, just because everybody will have to be there. And I think that's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, and I think if anything, it could end up being more exciting because of the fact that obviously across the whole world, we have these crazy talents leveling up, whatever, but the number of almost like outliers that seem to be appearing on the American side or keep progressing, like the Elliots, the Austins, the Bobs, like people like that. What's going to happen next year when they're all there together, every single weight class? Like there's storylines from every single weight class this year, and a lot of the best lifters, well, most of the best lifters, to be fair, did still turn up, but they didn't have to. So how is that going to look in a year's time when everyone's there?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the most aggressive battles we've seen just to make it to Worlds across every weight class. So, yeah, I'm very excited for it. And the best part is, like I said, a lot of these lifters, like Bob, for example, they're going to have all this time to build. So it's going to be good. I'm very, very excited. And the thing is, I have a feeling we're going to see stuff like this start to happen internationally as well, because it just seems like that's kind of how it goes. America gets this big like pickup in talent, and we kind of see, I don't know if it's just something mentally unlocks everywhere else in the world where they're like, all right, we got to do better. So yeah, no, but it was really, really awesome to see. And like you said, few things turned out the way we thought. A lot of things didn't turn out the way we thought. So that's the fun of our sport now. I think that's the most fun part about it. A few years ago, it was a thing where, hey, whoever's the strongest lifter is just going to win. Even if they mess up, they're going to win. But now everything's just too close. So
yeah, 100%. I think we wrap it up there because we have been talking for 2 hours. Thank you very much for joining me. Obviously, really appreciate it. It was a nice way to kind of wrap up, obviously doing the preview show together as well. Did you just want to shout out businesses, coaching, that sort of thing before we wrap up?
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Instagram at the Swolefessor, one word. Follow me on YouTube, the Swolefessor. If you're interested in coaching, the Swolefessor@gmail.com. I am currently full, but if you reach out, I can give you my coach recommendation list. You can also follow us at Powerlifting Now. And at Strength Now as well for program templates.
Perfect. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.